The 80s gave us the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in a half shell who went from black and white indies to pop culture legends. Venom burst onto the scene as Spider-Man's dark reflection, creating one of Marvel's most iconic characters. And then there's Lobo, the main man who brought attitude, chaos, and a whole lot of grit to DC. From their first appearances to record sales, current market values, and why they're still gnarly now, this is 80s comic book icons. Let's do it. This 80s icon spotlight is brought to you by Global Comics. Want to read some classic 80s comics? You can read them and 1,000 more anytime, anywhere on Global Comics. Global Comics just made the deal in comics even better. Global Comics Gold is now $6.99 a month or $69 a year, giving you unlimited access to tens of thousands of comics from DC, IDW, Boom Studios, and more. And here's the best part. With my special code, you can lock in an even better deal at just $59.99 for your first year. If you haven't become a member yet, now's the time. Big shout out to Global Comics for supporting today's spotlight. Now let's get back to celebrating the icons of comics. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Izzyverse NYC. We're going to be doing a comic book spotlight. It's going to be a fun one. They're always fun. I have an amazing guest with me this week. We did the 90s. We did the modern era. We're going to now move towards 80s icon, and I think 80s is one of my favorite decades, not just because of comic books, but because of movies, music. Everything that happened in the 80s was awesome. It was a great time for comics. But before I do that, make sure you take an opportunity, hit that like button, as we say. And if you like this kind of content, subscribe to the Izzyverse channel, in which we're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff. There is a live show coming up very, very soon. I'm super excited for it. I'm super stoked to have my new guest host, my new permanent host, who's going to be part of it. And you guys are going to have a lot of fun with that. That's going to be happening on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. I believe it's going to be September 8th is the first episode, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. So it's a ballpark number, but it's going to be a Tuesday, 7 p.m. But with that said, I have to bring in my guest, and he's a fun guest. He's a great guest. I love hanging out with this guy. Let's bring him into the party.
Welcome to the party, pal.
What's going on, man?
Oh, wow. Who's that in the background?
Bro, if we're doing an 80s show, how am I not having my man Mikey? I got to do it. Now you got, bro, you got the two mics.
That's
Almost.
right. Well, this, and then the other mic is hanging around somewhere.
Yeah, God only knows what he was doing in the 80s.
We don't.
I don't think we want to know.
We don't
You
want
don't want to know.
So, Mike.
Well, this one was being diaper trained and barely walking. So yeah.
Yeah, tell me about it. So, Michael Raphael from SpineWorks NYC. What's going on, my man? How's it been, man? Last time we saw each other was at Terrificon, man.
Terrificon was a great time. Great catching up as always. We got to have dinner. We got to hang out for a little bit. It was a good time, dude. It's been really busy. Con season is culminating to its end. Its finale at New York Comic Con in next month or 2 months. Almost.
Actually, that's the
You
last.
got Baltimore. That's true. That's
Baltimore's
true.
the last one for me because you got New York that's coming first, then Baltimore. Baltimore usually happens in September, but they decided to really mess with my wallet this year because I got to do New York, and then the very next week is Baltimore.
They're playing with you, bro. They're playing with
Yeah,
you.
they're touring. They're touring
Playing
with
with
my
my money is
emotions.
like playing with my emotions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're telling me about it. So we're gonna be talking a lot about '80s nostalgia this week.
Mm.
This week's spotlight, we got a lot of books here that we're gonna look at. Obviously, you mentioned the Turtles, but the '80s. How do you remember the '80s? Because the '80s for me was like my childhood to my teen years. I was growing up loving it. It's to me, it's
I
the best
mean,
decade.
like all right. So I was born in a very precarious year, right? Like just literally the last year of Gen X going into what you would call the millennials.
Mhm.
So, the first 2 years of the 1980s, I was literally just slobbering all over myself, learning how to walk, of course. And then, of course, I came into, I guess, consciousness or at least that I could remember, probably I would say mid 80s. I remember 80s cartoons. But when I would wake up in the morning, they were still replaying like the 70s things, like the
Mhm.
Hanna-Barbera stuff. So
Yeah.
I would wake up mad early in the morning, sneak out of my bedroom, go downstairs, pour a terrible bowl of cereal, spill it all over the freaking place, and then watch like the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And then they would come into the stuff that was made for us, which was like the Smurfs, what was it, Muppet Babies. Oh man, there was just so many good times. I mean, the 80s, when you talk to people who were like of age, right? They
Yeah.
never want to let it go, right? They think it was like the best time ever. And if movies, music, and anything else that we take from that era, listen, man, I'm hard pressed to find a better one. Now I'm biased towards the '90s because that was my coming of age
Yeah.
generation,
Of
right?
course.
But there's some weird draw to the '80s that I think everyone has, even if you weren't coming up in that generation. Like you feel me?
Mhm.
Like I don't know anyone who doesn't like '80s music. I don't know
Mhm.
anyone who doesn't love '80s movies. And interesting theory, a little off topic, but you'll find this one cool. So there's something called the 1984 paradox, which is one of these weird conspiracy theories that I am into, where it says something happened and there was a glitch in the timeline, right? Like mid 1980s, and like we ended the world, bro. Yeah, there you go. See? So we ended the world, and the universe reset itself, and that's why we have the Mandela effect and some of these other things, like these phenomena that we think of, like the fruit of the loom, whether or not it had a cornucopia, the Shazam movie with Sinbad, which I am still 100% sure I saw when I was a little kid. I'm almost certain I saw it, but whatever. Things like
Yeah.
that. So lends back into this theory that the universe reset itself. But it does. One thing that they say about it is like, why do we all have this like love for a decade that some of us were barely old enough to even remember,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I think if you were a kid during that time, it was also like the last generation of innocence, right? There was no cell phones, there was no internet. Like, yeah, you had the milk cartons and stranger danger and the say no to drugs things going on.
Mhm.
But really, you got to go outside and play. You drank from the garden hose. You had to be home before the lights came on. Like that was how we grew up. And I think it was the last generation that really got to live that way before it all got technologized, if you will, and drawn into this new world. So I think it was the last age of innocence, and
Mhm.
that's why we look at it so fondly.
I agree with you a lot of that. For me, I was a kid growing up in the '80s, turning into a teen in the '80s. So I became a teenager in the '80s. That's how old I am. This don't let.
Wow. So you like freestyle music then?
So, but that talking about music, man, we had '80s synth pop. We had like Michael Jackson was on top of the world. Madonna was on top of the world. We also had hair metal, but we had hair metal, but we also had thrasher metal. So you had like Metallica, Megadeth, but then somehow we had Skid Row. We had what's these other bands that I can't even think off the top of my
Motley
head.
Crue, Poison.
Motley Crue, Poison. So we had that, and then we had some amazing movies. I pointed out Back to the Future. I got
Yeah, bro.
Ghostbusters there. Um, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles became later on in like
Yeah,
towards almost to the '90s, but they're part of the '80s nostalgia.
yeah. Oh yeah.
We had tremendous cartoons that if you watch them today, they're not that good, but they
Yes, they
are.
are.
You know what I mean?
They're
But
awfully beautiful. Awfully
Transformers,
beautiful.
baby. Transformers, baby. Transformers, G.I. Joe, He Man, Thundercats, all that comes from the
The best
80s,
stuff. It's the best
right?
stuff.
So we had all that stuff. We were coming off of Star Wars as well because we had Return of the Jedi, Empire as well, Empire then Return, and then we kind of like cool off of Star Wars, and we just ended
Yeah,
up being what we ended up being. And I remember growing up as that time how dope everything was. Like you said, it was a time of innocence. Saturday morning cartoons were the best that I totally miss
yeah.
today. I wish honestly that's one of the things I wish was still a thing. All right, so let's get into this list, man. It's a long list. Let's go into it. Let's look at the 80s, and we're going to start things off with our honorable mentions. Again, as I mentioned before, we are here to really just talk about our love for the 80s, our love for 80s comic books and things like that, because I think it is something that is sorely missed today. Um, we need more of it. We need more of this style. But one of the things that was awesome about the 80s was the comic books as well. I think comic books also as well went through some level of a renaissance in the 80s, especially
Yeah.
towards the latter half of the 80s. We're going to take a look at these what we call 80s icons. So this is not a list of the top comic books of the 80s, rather that we're going to look at this list of characters. So this is a character driven list that's here. It's not a countdown, it's not a top 10. We are going in chronological order. I did omit some characters because I've done them before in previous videos, like certain X-Men characters and things like that. So some of those people are going to be missing in this list, but that doesn't mean that they're not part of it. We're going to start things off really simple with what I like to call our honorable mentions, right? So our very first honorable mention is going to be Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger is a pair that they came from the 80s. They spawned from Spider-Man, I believe it was a Spider-Man comic book. And they're
Spectacular Spider-Man.
they're yeah, they're a very interesting duo. Um one is darkness, the other one's light. They're gaining some more popularity today because of Marvel Rivals. What's your thoughts on Cloak and Dagger?
I think it was a vastly underutilized duo. We did get the TV show that was short-lived, right? It was on.
Yeah.
I want to say it was on TNT or one of the
FX
lesser known
it was like
cable
on the
networks
X
or FX,
Fest or something like that.
and it wasn't a bad show, right? It wasn't a bad show. It was decent. I enjoyed it. They're characters that had so much going for them. They were runaways that bonded
Hmm.
over a troubled past and a troubled childhood, and it was part of the start of basing comics on some reality, right?
Yeah.
You had the drug addiction element, you had the dangerous streets, you had the runaways, you had the kids living on the street, which was something that started a bit earlier with Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams when they did Hard Traveling Heroes with
Hmm.
Green Lantern and Green Arrow series. So like this kind of stayed at it, and I think Cloak and Dagger definitely represented what we would consider a vulnerable class at the time.
Yeah.
And you didn't see a lot of it. And the fact that they became heroes, they were depending on each other, and it wasn't just the fact that they depended on each other for emotional support and friendship, of course, but literally their power set depended on one another. So Cloak relied on Dagger's energy to maintain himself
Mhm.
and to be able to control the darkness from consuming him and everything around him because he needed a lot of energy to just keep it under wraps, if you will. That
Mhm.
was a pun because he wears a cloak. Get it?
Yeah.
The cloak. Anyway,
We're gonna have them
so
all day here.
yeah, so it was a great dynamic, and yeah, I would love to see them make a comeback. And the Marvel Rivals game, I think, is going to bring a lot of characters back to the
Mhm.
spotlight. And again,
Yeah.
parents, if your kids are playing the Marvel Rivals game, don't be ashamed to bring out the comic books, throw them in front of them, and when they look at you like, did you just like reveal the scrolls or something? Say, yeah, here, read this, and you'll be
Yeah.
surprised. A lot of kids will take to it, man. But yeah,
Yeah.
Cloak and Dagger, definitely awesome, and I would love to see a resurgence.
Right. Another honorable mention I think is he was formed because of the 80s, I'm gonna say. Um, I'm talking about Black Mask. He is one of the last great Batman villains to come out of it. He wasn't a major villain, but he is a crime lord. So really, the 80s was full of we had Godfather, we had Scarface. Then later
Yeah.
on in the 90s, we ended up getting Casino and things like that. So having crime lords was a big deal. And who? Come on, a crime lord of Gotham City?
I know. I mean, somebody had to take down Falcone. And who better to do it than this faceless man?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the character was not done justice in the film that we got, the Birds of Prey movie. I'm going to
Yeah,
go
but
ahead and
did you but you
put
ever
that
get
out
to
there.
you ever get to see Under the Red Hood how they made him in
Oh
the
yeah, no,
animated? Oh, I love that version of
listen. DC animated films are not to be trifled with.
Mhm,
Like I can't think of one of them that wasn't great. And the best depictions of these characters are absolutely 100% in them.
mhm.
Again, James Gunn is going to hopefully touch on some of these characters again.
Yeah.
But like going back to the 80s, you're right. Like there was gangster fever, right?
Mhm.
These were rock stars committing crimes, and you know what? It's indicative of that era as well, right? Like that was the rebellion era. The 60s had the hippies and free love. The 70s, I don't think anyone did anything in the 70s. I'll be real
Oh, no,
honest.
no, everybody did a lot of stuff in the 70s,
But
and
they
they had
don't
to deal with
remember
it
it
in the
though.
80s. They
But
had
they
to
don't
deal with it
remember
in the
what they did in the
80s
'70s.
because
I mean,
the 70s was
I
like disco
conceived in the
era,
'70s.
clubbing, and all that stuff, and in the 80s, we ended up being more of everybody wanted money, right? So
Yeah,
it was very capitalistic time period,
Greed
right?
is
Where
good. Gordon Gecko.
Gordon Gecko, you name it, Wall Street, all that stuff. And part of that was the whole, mafia scene, especially with movies like Scarface. Every
Yeah,
Scarface is a character you shouldn't be rooting for, and you find yourself rooting for that
I'm doing it
character.
anyway.
You know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
Listen, and one of my favorites, The King of New York.
Hmm.
The King of New
Yep.
York is one of the best '80s movies
So
ever. I mean,
great
ever.
stuff, man.
And
And
yeah,
so he's pretty much spawned out of that scene, and that's where Black Mass comes. He's still a really cool character. They kind of did a reinvention of him in Absolute Batman, gave him this big head type of thing. But I'm a
and
big
he
fan
plays
of
a
the
larger
original.
role, of course.
Hmm. And finally, our last honorable mention is a character that I think is going to get a lot more love these days, and that's Maxwell Lord. Maxwell Lord, again, is one of those characters. He was another character created from the whole 80s scene. We talk about, a certain president that was big in the 80s. You know what I mean? Gordon Gecko is a good example. Maxwell Lord fits that same mode. He created
Yeah,
the New Justice League. So the New Justice League was part of his creation where they became part of a corporation. So Maxwell Lord was one of those characters. He also had this way of manipulation. So turned out he was a meta human. The first, originally he wasn't, but
yeah.
he ended up becoming a meta human, and he created Checkmate, which is kind of like a shield type of group
Hmm.
and things like that. So he's somebody that I think today, now that Sean Gunn is playing the role, and he was played by
Yeah,
Pedro Pascal. So Pedro Pascal played him in the 80s, which Wonder Woman 84, not a good movie, but
yeah.
he was created for that movie. He's one of those characters that I call him an honorable mention because I think we're gonna see more of him very soon.
I think so. I mean, everything that goes around comes around. Everything that's old becomes new again.
Mhm,
Maxwell Lord he is the type of character that would thrive in today's world.
mhm.
Absolutely thrive. Match him up with modern day technology, and you've got just as dangerous as Professor X with Cerebro. To be perfectly honest, that
Yeah,
power of persuasion, which became a power set later on. He created the New Justice League, like you said, but also had involvement in Justice League Europe, so on and so forth, and the New Justice Society, which obviously is a play on the Justice Gang, is a play on that. So yeah, you're right, and I think being that his brother, who's a great actor by the way, so I don't want to hear that it's nepotistic. Uh, he's a great actor in his own right. All right, Sean Gunn is awesome, so he deserves the role. I think he's going to do good things. But yeah, I think just like Guy Gardner somehow became a favorite of ours, I'm going to go with Maxwell Lord, who's going to become one of our favorite baddies.
All right, so those are your honorable mentions. Now let's get into our list. We're going to start things off with a derivative character. This character was created simply because Marvel wanted to make sure they insure the rights for themselves. And they didn't want like NBC really was the company. They didn't want NBC to make this character. So they
Yeah,
went ahead and they made She-Hulk as a result of the TV shows The Incredible Hulk, which is also a big part of the 80s. So when we look at She-Hulk, she made her debut in Savage She-Hulk #1 in 1980 for Marvel Comics. A high sale of this book, believe it or not, was $27,250 at a 9.9. That was in March of 2022. Last sale of this book is $55 at a no grade. The raws go for about $44 and very fine, 268 at 6.8, and those are your averages. There's 12,675 copies in the census. This is the first appearance of She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters, and it was written by Stan Lee. So Stan Lee went out of retirement to write this one.
And why the hell not? I mean, She-Hulk brought us a lot more than she gets credit for. That character was the first person to break the fourth wall. Just put that out there. All right, she broke the fourth wall before Deadpool. It was also the first character to really be used as parody within their own title. Like they were kind of trying to make her serious, but also make a joke out of it at the same time. A lot of iconic covers, such as the jump rope cover, I
Mhm,
believe, I forgot which issue it was. I want to say it was 19 or
mhm.
20, where it was the jump rope cover. The other one, like, why do I have to work twice as hard? And, although they went about it in a humorous way, it really touched on the inequality that a lot of women felt in the 80s, that, which led to, the modern day feminist movement, whether you like it or not. And there was a glass ceiling. The female characters were not as easy to sell. Female executives weren't too much of a thing back then. And it in a humorous manner, really delved into it. And I think it was awesome. The fact that she was a lawyer, the fact that she was smart, she was the opposite of Bruce Banner, right? Who was David Banner in the TV show, by the way? I don't know
David
if you knew
Bruce
that.
Banner. They did do
Yeah.
that because and this is God honest truth. This is reality. They thought the name Bruce was too gay. That is the
You
truth
know what?
behind it.
I'm not sure if it was too gay, quote unquote, but what they felt was it wasn't a strong enough
It
name.
wasn't a manly name.
It wasn't a manly name. Now, David, I don't know. I mean, you had Davy Boy Smith. You had what was that Partridge Family? Wasn't it some David in the Partridge Family too?
The
Or
monkeys, they
David
had a
and
Davy.
Goliath?
Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so Dave from Wendy's, right? Come on, Dave Thomas. I
Dave
mean,
Todd.
Bruce. I mean, the '80s had Bruce
Okay, but
Springsteen.
but tell me this.
Yeah,
When you think of the name Bruce, you don't think of Bruce Banner originally, right? You think of Bruce Wayne. And
yeah.
how
But you
can
know
you
what? Maybe
not
that had something to do with it. Maybe that had something to do with it
maybe
too. I mean,
but it was weird. But that's
like,
what I heard, that it wasn't a
like
manly enough
what was
name.
it? I read the same thing, and in my delving into the darkest corners of the internet to find more info, that's really what it came down to. They thought it wasn't a masculine enough name, and maybe they wanted to put that out there as a slap in the face to Batman. That
Possibly.
was their way of slapping Batman in the face. Oh, Bruce, but whatever. But She-Hulk, listen, She-Hulk is a great character. It's a fun read. It doesn't
Mhm.
take itself too seriously, but at the same time, it did start to tackle topics that were happening, and
Yeah.
I enjoy it. The original She-Hulk one was great. All right, so interesting thing about the She-Hulk one from a comic presser perspective, it is one of these issues that happen to have a similar defect that runs a lot, specifically in this book, and it's called cockling. It's this weird little line that you'll see going across, usually the back. It just looks like a line, and everyone thinks you could press this out, but I can press this out, and you could put a bulldozer and a building on top of this freaking thing. It's not coming out. It's a printing defect that you don't see too often, but there are certain books that I have found personally to see a lot more in, and She-Hulk is the number one offender. So if you ever get a She-Hulk number one and it's in a 9.6, and you see this little line in the back, you think, oh, if I could press that out, that's going to get a 9.8. No, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. It's not going to happen. But yeah, again, She-Hulk was a great character. I enjoyed it, and I think definitely undervalued. And for the record, aside from the last episode, I actually enjoyed the show. I don't know about you.
I was a fan of the show because I read the John Byrne. So there was a lot of John Byrne in it.
Mhm.
Um and that's where I enjoyed it. Yes, there were certain things I wasn't a big fan of what they did to Abomination, and
Yeah,
that last episode, I think it would have been more funny if it was actually Kevin Feige rather than
yeah,
this made up Kevin Feige. So there was that. But besides that, it was a fun show. I watched the whole thing. I enjoyed it. I don't,
yeah.
I'm not going to return to it or anything like that. But you know what? Sometimes you
What's the
just
actress
need to
name?
just get away.
Tatiana.
Yeah,
Tatiana.
Tatiana Mala something, Mala Noche.
I loved her, dude. I loved her. Dude,
Nassia, I
I
don't know.
loved watching her, man. When she was,
Yeah, so it was fun.
Jennifer Waters, I loved it. I thought she did a great job. I enjoyed her character. There were some elements of that show that I really could have just done without hitting delete. Could have cut out a whole episode, to be honest.
Exactly.
But
All right, let's move on to our next character because that was the first one. Our next character here we're gonna look at is a set of characters: Cyborg, Raven, Starfire, the new Teen Titans. These all made their first appearance in the book DC Comics Presents 26. This book came out in 1980 for DC Comics. High sale of this book, believe it or not, was
oh yeah,
$4,005 at a 9.9. That was March of 2022. The last sale of this book was $76 at a no grade. Raw's goes for about $64 at a very fine, $795 at 9.8. There's currently 5,632 copies in the census. As I mentioned, this is the first appearance of Cyborg, first appearance of Raven, first appearance of Starfire. It's also where Beast Boy becomes channeling, and this is where we get our first glimpse of the new Teen Titans, which, dare I say it, they rivaled the X-Men in the 80s. There was only one
oh
group
yeah.
that was able to rival the X-Men in this time, and that was the Teen Titans. Where Marvel had X-Men, DC had the Teen Titans, and those were the two biggest books of
And
its
then there
time.
was the crossover.
And the crossover event, which I really miss George Perez not being a part of it, but Walter Simonson did a really good job on that book. So got to give him
Walt is
love
not
too.
a Walt is a force to be reckoned with. Let's be honest. And I'll tell you what, man. In my opinion, this was the birth of cosplay. The birth of cosplay. You want to talk about two of my biggest weaknesses when it comes to cosplay? It is Starfire and Raven. And you know what? It comes from that same great book. I know you can't see it, but behind me on the wall is that very book you talked about, signed by George Perez.
Ooh,
It's one of
nice.
my prized possessions. I love it. The New Teen Titans was a great title. Everything that came out of that, even translates great today. Like I even enjoy that Teen Titans Go show,
Oh,
as
it's awesome.
ridiculous
I
as
love
it
it.
is. It is such an
Like
enjoyable show to watch. Obviously we're getting Cyborg. I think we're gonna get a good Teen Titans with this guy.
that book is a hot book right now. The first Nightwing is a
Oh
very
yeah,
hot book,
first
man.
Nightwing.
hmm
So, but
So
this DC Comics Presents 26 is definitely undervalued. I think it's got star potential. I think it's got GSX1 potential
mhm.
if the DC universe goes as far as many of us DC fans are hoping.
the potential it has, because obviously a 9.9 at $40,000 is something. I think what's hurting it, and this is usually the case with these books, is
Yeah.
that they're not front and center in this cover. It's a great cover by Jim Starlin, but it's not a cover that's screaming out Teen Titans, even though Teen Titans' name comes in twice. Um, I
Yeah.
think that's what hurts this book more than anything. It's a first of all, it's very busy. It is an extremely busy
Yeah.
cover. You see their name in the top, so you have a 16-page preview. So this is kind of like first appearance of Spider-Man 2099. This is a preview book. So so you get this preview
Yeah.
of the new Teen Titans. Again, you have to say it twice. You actually say it three times because it's also the cover of the issue. Um, that they have it there. So there's definitely this expectation for them. Um, I don't think this book will reach that level because of that reason. Because of the fact that they are not
I mean,
front and center.
covers play a big
Yeah.
part. We all know that, right? It's the first thing you see when you walk into a shop. It's the first thing you see when a book hits the stands. It's the premise behind the whole 180 versus 181 debate, the Spider-Man 299 versus 300 debate.
hmm
It's one of those things that it will even it can be creator be damned, history be damned, and I think, listen, again, will it come to a point where we'll start to say, all right, let's go with what was intended. Let's go with what was initially created. Let's go by what the creators themselves are saying versus what's just a fan favorite. But being that art is so prevalent and so important in this medium, I think you're right. I think the cover probably will keep it from reaching that status because the GSX1, as I tried to compare it to, it has both what's presented in the book itself and such an
Yep.
iconic cover. I mean, just one of the best covers ever drawn in comic books, and which odd because it's not a whole lot into it when you think about it. It's not a busy cover,
hmm
right? It's almost minimalist. You have the shadow of the original X-Men in the back, and then here's these whole new people, coming through the front. We're taking over your
Yeah, it's a
universe.
pinup. It's a pinup.
So it's a pinup, right? So I mean, if you put any other cover on this book, man, had the Teen Titans prominently featured, then I think it would have been a big
Hmm.
thing. I think it'd be a lot
Yeah,
bigger.
I agree.
But like, if we start to value what's in between the two covers, this book
Oh,
is a
but
sure
Teen
shot.
Titans #1, that's a great cover. That cover is like perfect.
Well, if you
Yeah,
notice, Teen Titans #1 looks a lot like GFX
it does.
#1.
But then again, it's George Perez, so I'm okay. Moving on to our next book in our list. I said we were going to get to that guy. We got to him really soon. And this is Deathstroke the Terminator, Slade Wilson, who
Ooh,
made his debut in a little book called New Teen Titans, issue #2, that also came out in 1980. This book has a high sale of $27,552. That was in March of 2022.
almost.
The last sale of this book, believe it or not, was $10 at a no grade. Raws goes for $66 at very fine, $258 at a 9.6, which is the average for this book. 7,529 copies. First appearance of Deathstroke, the Terminator. I always like saying the Terminator when it comes to Deathstroke. If you remember in the cartoon, Slay, they didn't call him Deathstroke because they were afraid of censorship issues. And of course, they wouldn't
Oh
call him
God.
Terminator because of the whole Terminator situation. But Deathstroke the Terminator is one of the best villains ever. Ever.
Absolutely. 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 Listen, I mean, he's definitely one of my favorites.
Let,
Shout
let,
out to Lone
let,
Wolf JC
let's
for
see that one,
hooking me
baby.
up in a show with this copy.
Let's see that one here for a second. Boop. Let's get that. Look at that, baby. Uh,
Yeah, we got
average is a 9.6. Look
nine
at
six.
that. We were
Listen,
just talking about the average.
I'm glad. I'm glad that I'm here to be average. That's awesome. But I'll be honest, man. A 9.6 is my keeper grade. We've spoken about this
Mhm.
before. If I get a book even a book I love like this. Now this might be different because he is arguably one of my favorite comic characters. Period. Absolutely my favorite DC villain, hands down. Right. But 9.6 for me is the keeper grade. If I have two of a book and I send them to a grading company and I get back a 9.8, and that price discrepancy on that 9.8 is so vastly larger than the 9.6. Guess what? The 9.8's gone,
Mm.
right? Because daddy needs money. Diapers cost money. We got to pay bills here. So holding on to that 9.8 for the sake of holding on to it doesn't make sense. 9.6 is a keeper grade for me. So I'm very happy with this book. And again, shout out to Lone Wolf for the deal on it, which I was very appreciative for. But listen, Deathstroke, Deadpool, Slade, Wade, come
Explain
on,
to
man.
me how we are getting this new Marvel versus DC crossover event coming, and you did
And
you
they're not
did
fighting.
Deadpool versus Batman, and you didn't go with the jugular. I would have gone as far as calling Rob Liefeld, getting him on the book just to do it, just to do it.
You know what? I think what again, we don't know the matchups that are coming from the DC
Mhm.
release of this, right? So there's going to be two releases
Yeah.
of that book. The first one we're getting is from the Marvel
Mhm.
side. The second one we're getting is from the DC side. Now we know DC has the fortitude, if you will, to push the envelope a little more than Marvel does,
Yeah, of
especially now.
course.
Current titles, hands down, DC is pushing the envelope. The absolute lineup, everything. In my opinion, they are killing it right now. They're absolutely killing it. We missed a really cool opportunity and a hat tip to the fans, if you will, to really put together some verses of characters that we all know are like complete, complete copies of one
Mhm.
another. And whether it was done, maliciously or not, or coinky dink, which probably not. I would have wanted to see Deadpool versus Deathstroke. I want to see Moon Knight versus
Yeah.
Batman. Man Thing versus Swamp Thing. And some people might say, "Oh, it's monotonous." The same people, but that would have been the whole
Mhm.
point, right? The Marvel versus DC would have been badass. The Teen Titans fighting the X-Men, like that's that would have been really, really, really cool. I'm excited to see what we're gonna get, but seeing Deathstroke go at it and having him break the fourth wall. Does anybody else realize how similar we are? And just really touching on that topic in the story
It would have
would have
been
been
great,
dope.
man.
It would have been so dope to
Yeah.
see,
So,
man.
but this character itself.
Whereas in the '80s, it would have been
So what
radical.
makes Deathstroke such a great character is that he is the villainous Batman. He really is. He is everything that Batman is if he was a villain. Dare I say, he might even be more so because he is a bit of a metahuman. So, a lot of people are not sure if he's a metahuman or not, but he does use, from what I understand, he uses 90% of his brain as opposed to most people that use
Yeah,
10% of his brain. I rival to think if that's considered metahuman or not, but to some people it is. He's always
I'll be real honest. If most people use 10% of their brain, I
yeah,
consider them
exactly.
metahuman these days.
So I know, right? Tell me about it. So with a character like Deathstroke, he's the kind of guy that is 10 steps ahead of everyone. And you know he's just gets better and better with time. He looks the part. The costume
Yeah,
is great. Even when you take off the mask and you see the eye patch, oh, everything about Deathstroke is perfect. Such a great
yeah.
character. One of the best villains in comic books. I can't wait till we actually get a good live action version of him, because Joe Manganiello,
We
man,
almost
we
had it.
almost had it with Joe
Ah,
Manganiello.
you were right there,
I wouldn't I
right
wouldn't
there.
be too surprised if James Gunn says, let's just bring him in. Let's see what you could do."
That was such a
It
tease,
was.
bro. That was such a tease. It was like we're this close to the money shot. Cold
Mhm.
shower.
Yeah. All
Perfect.
right, moving on to our next character in our list here. We got a good one. Elektra, baby.
Ah,
We're going to Marvel now. And Elektra made her appearance in Daredevil 168. This book also came out in 1980 for Marvel Comics. High sale of this book is $5,520. That one goes back to August of 2022. Last sale of this book was $134 at a fine. The Raws goes for $165 at a very fine. $330 at a 9.4. That black cover, man, that makes it hard. There are currently 8,123 copies in the census. I love that they misspelled her name in the cover. It brings a little sensibility that I love. Electrica is her name in the cover, but
and, it's interesting that they kind of use the Greek Scythian font. And I don't know if a lot of people knew that, right? That's a Greek Scythian font, and she is supposed to be like Nachios,
Nachios,
right?
yep,
Like
that's her name.
I don't know, like
Yep,
Greek,
she's definitely Greek. So
Greek.
Daredevil. Oh, wait. Pop that up again. Bring that baby up. Look at you, just flexing those muscles.
Look, Daddy came prepared today. If we're gonna do '80s comics, Daddy brought the goods. All right, and this is a newsstand,
Look
by
at
the way.
that.
But yeah, we're not having a pissing contest here. But you know, Elektra is probably was vastly underused in the modern Daredevil show,
Mhm.
right? It was a vastly underused character. We should have gotten more Elektra. She didn't last long in the comics
No.
initially. For those of you who read it, right? She didn't last very long at all, but she became such a fan favorite that they had to, apply the nerd paradox on her. So for you who don't know what the nerd paradox is, no one ever really dies in comics. So it's the nerd paradox. Dead today, back tomorrow. And rightfully so. It's a great character. You know, Jennifer Garner played her, which was awesome. You know, and like, it's one of those characters that people want to see more of. Like, she's considered to be a lot bigger part of the Daredevil law than what she was allowed to be
Hmm.
initially. And now, of course, if you're following Daredevil and you're reading it currently, kids, please, for the love of God, read your books. Um, she's now Daredevil.
Yeah. Well, to your point there, like going, Daredevil and Spider-Man, they have a lot of parallels to each other. Where Daredevil is a more darker take on a street level vigilante from New York City. Daredevil has the darker take. Spider-Man's more lighter tone, but in Daredevil's world, it's very again they're very parallel to each other, right? Daredevil has Foggy, where Spider-Man has Harry, but Daredevil also has Karen, who is kind of like
Yeah.
that Spidey's Mary Jane. But Elektra is to Daredevil what Black Cat is to Spider Man in that way, right?
Oh yeah.
Where she's not
The ever so
right, but
elusive.
it's like she's not a hero. She's not really a villain. She's somewhere in between there,
Yeah.
right? She beats to her own drum, and then you throw in the bullseye element to it, kingpin element to this, and you got yourself some
Yeah.
crazy stuff going on with these characters. Like the love story between Elektra and Daredevil is very interesting. I don't know how people feel about Daredevil Elektra versus Daredevil and Karen Page, because Karen Page did some messed up stuff to Daredevil as well. But
Yeah. Yeah.
what Frank Miller was doing at this time, this is Frank Miller at his best, absolute best. He was drawing, he was writing, he was getting very deep into
It
it,
was peak, bro.
and Elektra just spawned out of that. Elektra, dare I say, is actually Frank Miller's greatest creation in my point of view. Everything else has been awesome, but he's been using other people's characters. Elektra is his.
Yeah.
He made Elektra.
I mean, that tracks,
Yeah.
bro. That tracks for even the Electro limited series that was again drawn by him and Bill Sienkiewicz, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not mistaken, was another
Assassin.
vastly underread. Yeah, I mean that was an underread. I don't think a lot of people read it. So run out, grab the trade paperback of that, and give it a read. What a great story! I mean, and again, a character that wasn't utilized very well initially. Who knows why? Like we never really know why characters are killed off real quick. Maybe she wasn't supposed to be that popular, and then that's how it became, or what have you. Or maybe the rights or Frank Miller in and out of Marvel and upset with them. You never really know what's going on, right? But the truth be told, like that character carried so much weight with the fans. Bringing her back was a good example of when a comic company or any publisher really listens to the fans and gives them what they want, which is something that is sorely missed in comics today, along with splash
Yeah,
pages.
tell me about it. Moving on. We got another character to look at, and it's a Southern Belle. Now, I said I had to remove certain characters that I probably would have fallen there. I think Kitty Pryde's one of them, but I couldn't pass
Yeah,
up on our girl Rogue, who made her debut
no sugar.
in Avengers Annual Number 10. This book came out in 1981 from Marvel Comics. Many considered the ugliest cover ever. I sell this book is $2,500.
Don't do my man Al like that.
I'm just
Don't do
saying.
Uncle
I'm
Al like
just
that, bro.
saying.
Don't do my Uncle Al like
Uh,
that.
$2,500. It was the high sale at 9.8. That was in March of 2021. The last sale of this book was $175 at 9.2. Raw goes for about $45 at a very fine, $210 at 9.6. There's a lot of copies, 11,586
Yeah,
copies in the census. This is the first appearance of Rogue. This is also the first appearance of a character who's not the actual character, but Chris Claremont couldn't come up with new names, so he created the character Madeline Pry in this book. That's not the same Madeline Pry that we know from the X-Men lore. And you guys want to flex muscles? I'll flex right here, baby.
uh-oh, uh-oh.
Yeah. You like that? You like that? Let's go ahead and see this one here. Bam! Look at that.
Boom. There you
This
go,
one's
baby.
signed. This one is not just
Dope.
signed by one, but signed by two. This is Chris Claremont and Michael Golden.
Oh,
And I did,
we gotta get Uncle Al
yeah.
on there for you
Oh,
too now.
yeah, but I don't know if I want to. I
I
don't
know
know.
a
I don't
guy.
know if I want to crack this thing. Look at that. I even got the custom label and everything on that sucker. So,
Bro, you know a guy who could do that for you.
oh,
Don't you
I
worry.
definitely know it. I
Daddy got
definitely know
you.
a guy.
Daddy got you.
I picked this thing up in Heroes Con last year, and I got it signed this year. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this one. This is a fun one.
It's funny, we could also draw the parallel between this book and the DC Presents
Very.
series, right? Basically the same thing. A whole lot of windows with a lot going on inside, right? I mean, that's how I would describe those two covers. Too many windows to get into the house. And I think, annuals though were not really considered to be big issues, right? Annuals were just a wrap up at the end of the year, just kind of surmising what's going on, give you a little teaser taste of
Mhm.
what was to come in the next installment of any title. So, with some great exceptions, right? Obviously, ASM Annual number one, introduction of the Sinister Six, which is great. This issue, DC 26, there's a lot of significance in them, but at that point, they were kind of done. I think what we saw here were panels that were supposed to either have been used as a preview or were probably not used in a storyline. They're like, screw it, let's just throw this on the
Mhm.
cover and be
Yeah.
done with it. I think that's kind of what happened, to be honest.
And I think with this one here, what's interesting for me is that it is Chris Claremont on an Avengers title, but we also know Chris
Yeah,
Claremont's working on X-Men. So he's throwing in the mutants in here somehow. So this gave us it gave us an opportunity to see the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants because they also made their debut
yeah,
here. Rogue makes her debut here. However, we're not 100% certain what kind of character she's going to be. We're not even certain that that little window with that question, that lady with the question box, is really her. Some people don't even like, they say it, but they don't know if that's her or not because her hair is very different in this book than what we see in the cover here. So I think it was like you said, this is annuals were used for testing the waters. Let's see
yeah.
how this floats. If people like it, we're moving it over here. And that's exactly what they did with this one.
And not to mention, this book was the catalyst for the '90s X-Men movie that we got,
Yeah.
the first X-Men movie.
Hmm.
It was this book. This book is what launched it. I mean, the stories that we got in that movie and that series stemmed from
I
this.
agree.
So obviously, cultural significance right there. Cover,
Yeah,
meh.
it's orange.
Love
Has
you,
some
Uncle
nice
Al.
orange into
I love you, Uncle Al.
it. But yeah, it's not a fairly loved cover, unfortunately. But it's
No,
still it's fun. All right,
but it's a great
we're
book.
gonna go off from our Marvel and DC. We're getting out of the main stage. We are going now into some indie goodness. We're gonna go with a book that I think this character became more popular because of a movie rather than his comic book, and that is the character of the Rocketeer. The Rocketeer is one of those, World War II era characters that was created by a certain artist by the name of Dave Stevens. And he made his debut in the strangest place in the world, Star Slayer #2. This book came out in 1982 for Pacific Comics. High sale of this book is 566,009.8. That was September of 2021. Last sale of this book is $200 and 9.8. The Raws go for $18, very fine. $190 and 9.8. There's currently 1,378 copies in the census. This is the first, not the first cover appearance. This is the first appearance of the Rocketeer. Cliff Secor. This is a pretty cool Neil Adams cover, though. But it's the back
Yes,
cover.
a lot of people don't know that
It's
about
the
this.
back cover that I think more people are should be a little more familiar with.
Listen, the '80s is when we got a lot of comics that were doing back covers. I think Also, what was it? Incredible Hulk Wolverine number
Mhm.
8 was Wolverine number 8 has the Rob
Yeah.
Liefeld cover on the back. So and I believe it's the same year, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's kind of around the same year
Mhm.
too. So that was the thing. The Rocketeer movie. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I didn't get
Mhm.
into it. I wanted to
Yeah.
like it. I know I'm supposed to like it. I didn't
Mhm.
love it. The Rocketeer is one of those characters that I think became popular and became ingrained in our psyche for some reason. I mean, when you think about it, like I can't tell you I clamored for more Rocketeer stories, but Star Slayer has given us such amazing characters as
Yeah.
Grimjack, right? Which was supposed to be a movie at one point. The Russo brothers had expressed
Mhm.
interest in actually doing a Grimjack movie, which I think would have been sweet. But again, like it could be taken on again. It could be reinvented for the new modern era. But again, yeah, Star Slayer #2 and the Rocketeer is definitely an interesting
Yeah.
character for sure. But again, you utilized in an old timey
Yeah,
kind of
and I
way.
think with the Rocketeer, it was for an audience. We are talking about the '80s. With the Rocketeer movie, I think came out in 1990, if I'm not mistaken, because it came out right after Batman, if I
Yeah,
remember correctly. It was um, it was intended for fans of that time frame. So people that were going to the movies that may have lived through the 40s, World War II area. We talk about Indiana Jones, talk about
yeah,
80s icon. Indiana Jones is all about World War II era, right? So there's some nostalgic then for that era in the 80s. And the Rocketeer, what it had going for it at that time was that nostalgia of World War II era comic books, but it also had the
yeah,
brilliance of someone gone way too soon, Dave Stevens, who today is now getting the love he deserves from being an amazing artist. And Rocketeer was one of his
yeah.
creations. and I'm happy to see that Rocketeer is now getting a little bit of love, where then he probably didn't get that kind of love. He got a movie, for God's sake. That didn't happen like that.
He
You
did
know
get
what
a
I mean?
movie.
That's a big deal.
You're right. I mean, it wasn't like today where, as they so succinctly put out in Jay and Silent Bob, where greedy movie studios buying up every comic property they can get their grubby little hands on. It was a point where like movies were all big budget, right? Every movie cost a lot of money to make at that point, unless you were like one of those D-list, B horror movies, which are awesome, by the way. But that's neither here nor there. So anything that went through a major studio was a significantly budgeted
And it was a
film.
Disney movie.
So for someone to think, yeah, and for someone to think, hey, you know what, the Rocket's here. And it's odd, right? Because at that point, right, we just came off the high of Batman '89. Oh man, one of my favorite comic movies. If not, maybe my favorite comic movie. I'll be real honest. And again, I was a child at that point. Uh, cool story. That was the first movie I was ever allowed to go out to with my friends without a friend or immediate family member to go see. That was the first one, and maybe add that to it, right? So that awesome memory, first time of like just being allowed away from my parents. Batman '89 was dope, and it's an interesting choice that they went with a lesser known character for that next comic movie. But hey,
Yeah.
it did
It
well in
did
the theaters,
fair.
I
I think
think,
it did
right?
fair. It didn't do extremely well. That's why we never got a Rocketeer 2. But it was a fun movie for its time. The cast is not as it's a cult
Yeah,
classic today. So there's people that absolutely love it. So it's a
yes,
cult classic, and he kept the character alive, and therefore it made the list here. That's why it's on the list today. I didn't want to do I didn't want to do icons that we all know and love. I wanted to do some that people were not as familiar with that I consider to be icons from that
yes,
time. Among them is a character that a lot of people don't know of, but it was such a big impact in the 80s, and that's Grendel. The specific version of Grendel we're referring to is a character by the name of Hunter Rose, who made his debut in Comico Primer number 2. This book came out in 1982 for Comico. The high sale of this book was $6,600 at a 9.8. That was in March of 2022. Last sale was $330 and 8.5. Raws go for $340 at a fine. $550 at 9.4. Again, another black cover, so it makes it harder to get it at a high grade. 832 copies in the census. Grendel, created by Matt Wagner, was a huge character in the 80s, going towards the 90s, to the point that we still get Grendel characters. And Grendel was part of that whole vigilante characters that were stemming from this time. Everybody was going dark, everybody was going black. But Grendel was one of the earlier ones. He was the earlier, let's bring dark comics back, dark superheroes, characters with gray backgrounds instead of being, good versus evil. So
yeah.
any thoughts on Grendel? Because I know a lot of people don't know much about Grendel.
So Comico and the Grendel character was one of the first, not I wouldn't say violent vigilantes. We had Punisher, but to take center stage, right? He was one of the first ones to take center stage, and it wasn't like comicky, if you will, right? It was that the underground comics scene in the 1980s was also
Mhm.
emerging at the same time. You had like the really grotesque horror books that our friend Matrix Comics loved
Mhm.
so much. You have, the even we'll get to the another title in a minute, but like the underground comic scene was actually thriving at that point, and Grendel walked the line between mainline and underground
Mhm.
comics. Now, the issue with Comico, and the reason we didn't get it wasn't that the Grendel was not a popular character, but the company itself suffered
Yeah.
financial problems, which is what led to the end of Comico and again Grendel himself. Now Matt did take that property and went to other publishers with it, and it did make a crossover. There was a Batman Grendel crossover, a little bit
Yeah.
later on. So the character had a short-lived, but like you said, impactful, presence in the
Mhm.
comic
Yeah.
fandom. And I think people wanted to see more of it. It just kind of went in and out, and then it never really got the mainstream love it deserves. But like a lot of other things, now a cult classic favorite character, and you do still see them pop up every so often now. And I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked we see this character
Oh
pop
yeah,
up.
and I think sooner or later we'll get some kind of live action version. I do remember there was talks of an animated movie at one time for Grendel, because he does have that
Yeah.
same thing of Scarface type of characteristics where he's a crime lord, Hunter Rose. The name itself is just beautiful.
But you know what his day job was, right? His day job was an author.
It's so cool, man.
But yeah,
Matt Wagner's
so it's,
great,
it's
man.
a little bit of self insertion there, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
it's such a good book. And
So
Matt Wagner, he was the complete guy, man. He's a writer. He's a tremendous artist,
yeah.
tremendous artist.
Mm-hmm.
Like I actually have a Matt Wagner piece that he's drawn for me, and he drew. Believe it or not, guys, he drew it with crayons. He used crayons. Like
Really?
I'm talking about old school Crayola crayons. He just drew it. He drew it, and
No
it's
way.
dope, man. Like this guy knows what he's doing. So Grendel,
I was eating crayons when this came out. Explains
I
a
was a
lot.
little older. I was a little older. You know, I think I got you by a couple of years here.
I was legit eating crayons when this came out. That's hysterical.
All right,
But yeah, I mean, I think Grendel's due for a
yeah.
revival.
Let's talk about characters that went through changes, but they made their debut in the '80s. We're gonna look at two characters now. First character we're gonna look at is a character by the name of Jason Todd. Jason Todd, the second Robin, all right? Who, before we even get to talk about Red Hood, let's talk about how much people hated Jason Todd's Robin. Because it got to the point with Jason Todd is that when they created him, you know, Robin was still Robin. A lot of people don't know this. At that time, Dick Grayson still was Robin, but he went off to be with the Teen Titans, right? So he played, he stood as Robin and walked around with the big tights and you know the Robin Hood shoes, and then he became
Yeah.
Nightwing. So they finally made the decision. Well, we're gonna have to do something about this. We can't have two Robins, right? So he finally becomes Nightwing. Jason Todd gets the mantle of Robin. What was always interesting to me is that the way you were able to tell the difference between Jason Todd and Dick Grayson's Robin was the stupid little haircut that they gave Jason Todd. They kind of did this curly thing up front. Um, he was annoying. He was an idiot. I have to say he was an idiot. And then he
The
was a
brat.
brat. And then eventually he saw his demise. So let's talk about that before we get
Well, interestingly,
to Red Hood. Before we get to Red Hood, let's talk about Jason.
he was so hated. So he was so hated that DC went and set up a hotline to determine the fate of this character. Bro, they legit had
I
a
love the
hotline
80s.
to find out what wanted to happen to this character. And I mean, if you read the comics, you can't call spoiler alert 40 years later. They wanted him dead, bro. I mean,
Well,
and he died in
that's
the
the
most
thing.
gruesome manner that you could
But
think of.
that's the thing. So they believe there's this rumor that it was rigged. Now
I don't
it
know,
was
man.
rigged. It was rigged by because again, this is true. You could do this back then. You could do this kind of stuff. They
Yeah.
believe that there was this one individual who just consistently kept calling to get rid of him. Just
Persistence pays
consistently,
off, bro.
right?
Persistence pays off.
Because there was one of those 976 hotline numbers that for
Yep.
those of you who don't know, we had 976 and then it was 1900
900.
number where you could call in, but you had to pay for that service, right? So every time you
Yeah.
call, it would cost like $3 a minute or some crap like that. I remember I used to call the wrestling hotlines in which my mom would be like, "You got to stop calling the wrestling hotlines," and then she put a block on it and all that stuff because she got a bill one time with like $120 and it was all wrestling hotline numbers.
Yo, $120 was a lot of money in the 80s, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So there was this hotline, and of course, the end result was Robin is going to die, and it was by like 100 votes. That's why they say it was rigged by this one guy. Um,
I don't
he
think so,
eventually
man. He was
he
not loved.
eventually gets killed. They did the storyline. He gets killed, like you said, the most brutal way. But out of it, we end up getting years later. We're talking about decades later with
Yeah.
Batman Hush in the 2000s, where they kind of get again. It was another teaser by Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb, where we
Yeah.
get Jason Todd back. Turns out it was Clayface. Spoiler: it was Clayface, but it was enough for them to say we got something here, and they actually did bring him back as the Red Hood. And dare I say it, he is a much better character today because of that as
Yeah.
the Red Hood than he ever was as a Robin. Like he was like, you know what? I'm gonna do the things that Batman should have done, and now I'm gonna do it. So he's Batman without the breaks, and that's what ended up Jason Todd ended up becoming. But man, and we had a great movie out of it under the Red Hood, which
Oh
is a
yeah. Oh
phenomenal
man.
animated movie.
But when you think about it, it was really the resurgence of two characters when he took on the mantle, right? Because in in the Killing Joke, the Red Hood then became the basis for the Joker,
Mm-hmm.
which sent Detective Comics 168 into the stratosphere at that point,
Mm-hmm.
as far as books that are valued. But so you had the resurgence of not just Jason Todd, but the Red Hood as well. So we got two for the price of one on that one. And what a badass 2-for-1 deal it was, man. I mean, Red Hood is super popular with the younger audience. Red Hood is super popular in the video game, super popular in the animated series. And yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone who is not a Red Hood fan, and vis-a-vis became a Jason Todd fan. And even appearing in the Titans was dope. When you saw him come up in the Titans, it was great.
Yeah, it's a cool character. Another character, like I said, we're gonna talk about two characters. So they both made their first. Well, technically, this is one of those technicality ones that we'll talk about in a minute. The other character that we're going to look at is the character by the name of Killer Croc. Killer Croc is a interesting character to me because I didn't get to know Killer Croc until I seen Batman the Animated Series where they made him. I didn't love him because he does fall under the characteristics of being a monster in a Batman universe. So it's again back to that Batman dealing with monsters rather than Batman dealing with, just high level skilled arch enemies like the Joker, who's not really Joker doesn't is not really like a metahuman in that way. Neither is Riddler, neither is Penguin. They're just, they're psyche villains. Where Killer Croc is more of a muscular monster, and
Yeah.
he's one of those characters to me that I think as time progresses, people get more and more love for him. He's always had different
Mhm.
looks. I've noticed as well. So there's looks of him like this one here, or ones that he's actually looking more like a crocodile. Um,
Yeah.
so both of them, and we'll get to both of them. We'll talk about both of them in this next one. Here is they both some kind of made a debut. Um, this is the one that really strikes me odd. They made their
Mhm.
debut in Batman 357 that came out back in 1983 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $1,750 and 9.8.
Yeah.
That was in November of 2011. $41 at a no gray was the last sale. $59 for a very fine raw. $255 at a 9.6. That's the average. There's currently 2,526 copies in the census. This is considered the first cameo appearance of Jason Todd. It's also the second cameo appearance of Killer Croc. Now, out of all the books from the first appearances of Jason Todd, as well as
Yeah.
the first appearance of Killer Croc, this is the one that to me is the oddity. We talk about Incredible Hulk 180 versus
Mhm.
181, and everybody values 181 because Wolverine is front and center.
Yeah.
Everybody values X-Men 266 because Gambit front and center. Why
That's just
is this
frustrating.
one more valuable than the covers of the first Jason Todd and the cover of first Killer Croc? I don't get it. It's an oddball thing to me. I read this comic book. I picked up the facsimile of this book only to be extremely disappointed by it.
Yeah, I mean it's a little taste. It's an interesting book, but you know what? Two characters that remain strong in the Batman lore came from this book, so it's going to give it significance. The cover is an odd cover. It's not what you'd really expect, to have two major characters inside of it. But again, they were throwing things out there that they weren't sure were going to stick at that point, right? They're coming into their own. They're really introducing more characters in the sense of, are they going to be supporting or are they going to be this? Are they going to be that? debuting as the new Robin is not an easy thing. So we got to test the waters a little bit. Waylon Jones is an interesting character. I don't the whole monster part of it. I see what you're saying, but you know what? We kind of have monsters. We have Clayface. We have Scarecrow, who's sort
Yeah.
of a monster in appearance, at least. There's different variations. I think bringing him in was a good idea. I mean, around the same time as when we had Abomination for Hulk. Around the
Yeah.
same time, he was taking a more prominent role. We got him much earlier, obviously. But
Hmm.
I think he was a way to introduce another strong man, and it was a good way to do it. And it did. It made for good TV. It made for a good cartoon character. Probably made good for toys. So you got to
Hmm.
remember, product placement was a big thing at that point. And the emerging toy market going hand in hand with comic books and Saturday morning cartoons was important. So I think they had to come up with new, interesting looking characters, so that when the time came to make action figures and the time came to create different products revolving around it, there'd be something to be drawn to. And I certainly think that Killer Croc fits the mold for that. And
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that's why we got it. Now, if you're reading Absolute, the new version of Killer Croc,
Ooh.
hot damn, bro, hot damn.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, again, like I said, this book to me, I think to justify the price of it, I don't think it's my personal opinion is not worth its price. I think this book is subpar in that way because what we see in Killer Croc is a man in a tux in a in a rain jacket that doesn't even
Mhm.
show his face. What we see in Jason Todd is kind of like a kid that they're just saying, "Yeah, that kid's gonna be Jason Todd someday," but we don't know it. You get what I'm saying? And
So
this is to be
you're
justified.
trying to make something out of nothing. But I mean,
Yeah,
we
exactly.
could think the
So
same thing about Baby Cable, right? We could
yeah,
think the
same
same
thing
thing
with Baby.
about Franklin Richards in Fantastic Four Annual Number 6.
Yeah,
I will disagree with the Gambit thing, but that was the '90s show, and I wasn't on that one, so we won't go there. But 266 was the intended first appearance, and a clerical error caused the other thing. So I'm not going to
yeah,
give that
but at
any
least the
credence
other one he's in
whatsoever.
the book. You know what I
And
mean?
one, and listen, 180 is the first appearance.
Yeah,
It's 180. That's it.
and and
180.
298 and 298's the first appearance of the other guy.
299. To be fair.
Come on,
298, 298 was McFarlane's
well,
first work on the title.
we get an appearance of a hand. That should
It
count
was
for
the
something.
hand in 298, but you had that full panel in 299. Says his name. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll get to him later. I'm sure
And
we'll talk
Todd
about him
said so.
because
Todd
Todd
said
said
so.
so. All right, all right. Now we're gonna come into our list. There's no denying his first appearance. He's in the cover. The main man himself. We're talking about Lobo, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I love Lobo. I love this character so much because he is just oozing badass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He made his first appearance, as if you didn't know, in Omega Men 3 in 1980 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $554 at 9.8. That was in January 2023. Last sale of this book is $175 at 9.6. Keep in mind, this book sells a lot. This has a
Yes.
lot of sales going on. The Raws are $74 at near mint, and the graded copies go for $246 on average. 10,946 copies in the census. There he is in
Yeah.
the cover. Of course, he got this weird leotard thing going on, but right from the beginning, you could tell this guy's a badass. What I
Yeah.
find strange, and this is the conversation I have with a lot of people about this book has a high print run. Who
Yes.
cared about Omega Men back then? Did
Nobody.
anybody care about Omega Men?
I don't think so, but I mean, I think they wanted to make it the next big thing. We didn't really have huge DC teams in the early '80s outside of the Teen Titans, right?
Mhm.
We didn't have that big, you know, who were they battling against? I mean, we had OMAC, right? Nobody cared. We had,
Well, the
who did
Justice
we
League,
have
of
on the
course, is
Marvel
the big
side?
team.
But I'm thinking of like the Marvel side, where it was like a gaggle of characters, like a large group that was together but not really together that could splinter off. The best way to
Yeah,
test market a character, see if it's going to work, is to put them as part of an ensemble cast and see who the standout favorite is. And we've gotten quite a few characters that way when you think about it. We got Cable that way, we got Deadpool that way, we got Domino that way, we got a lot of characters were just kind of thrown into the mix and let's see what sticks, right? So I think Was Lobo supposed to be the big success that it was? I don't know. You know, obviously he's featured on the cover. You know, he was a bounty hunter. You know, a cosmic bounty hunter, right? How far did anyone think this was really going to go? And like you said, he's got the Kiss leotard going on with the Kiss makeup going on, and then later on became kind of like an S&M character, looking character, right? I mean,
Well, he ended
let's
up being a
finish it.
biker. He ended up being a straight
Yeah,
up biker because they changed the
innuendo
body.
lace,
Yeah,
BDSM outfits, literally had his butt hanging out of backless chaps. And that's what it was. I think also very
gender
influenced
swapped. He
by
was gender
underground.
swapped for fun sakes.
Yeah, there you go. And now he has a daughter. I mean, explain that one to your god. And it's the persona that he took on. Obviously a bit later on, right? And the awesome Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner had a lot to do with that as well. And you know what? It's one of those characters that you liked, you knew him, but not a lot of people read the stories.
Mhm.
But now we're getting it. Now we're gonna
Well,
get it. And
you
Jason
figured
Momoa
at
was
this
born to
point.
play this.
Yes, at this time, the only person that really had an attachment to Lobo at this time was Keith Giffen. But then Keith Giffen took him outside of the Omega Men because obviously people started gravitating towards him, especially with his backstory being what it is. He is a
Yeah,
straight up psychopath. He is insane. And but what they did was they gave him this nice little backstory. He's the last Carnesian. He killed his everybody so he could be the only one of his kind. He
that was
straight
the
up
reason.
killed him, right? He straight up killed him so he could be the only one of his kind.
Like the
But then he
Highlander.
has but then he has space dolphins, he has a dog, he's all and then you ended up getting Alan Grant as part of it as well. And then finally the amazing art of Simon Bisley that
Yeah,
really took Lobo to the next level. Lobo to me is one of my favorite 80s characters that just transcended. Again, this book is highly printed. It has a big census count. The cost
yeah,
of the book right now, believe it or not, is very affordable for what it's
yeah,
worth because in a year this book is going to blow up, and I think that's why it's constantly selling. It is one of the top selling books right now. It is always selling. Every time I
yeah,
see this book on a list, I look at the 30-day sales of the book. I guarantee you is always above 50 sales. That's how
yeah.
much people are prepping for this character. And like you said, Jason Momoa was born to play this
Porn,
character.
porn. And he said it
So
himself. Like,
yeah, so
you know it. And it's gonna be dope.
once we see it, this book might actually be unattainable at one point. I could see
You
this
know,
book being unattainable soon.
I would think the only thing that would prevent it from becoming stratospheric would be the high print run.
Mhm.
It is going to be a readily available book, but you know what? A lot of people are going to want it. A lot of
And
people are
that's
going
the
to want
catch. That's the catch. We look at the first appearance of Deadpool, which is New
it.
Mutants 98. If you look at the print run of that book, it is crazy. You look at the print run of Amazing Spider-Man 300. The print run on both of those books is
Yeah,
extremely
insane.
high because they were top sellers of their time. And the price of those books are high as well. We're talking about $500 books in
Yeah.
98 and above. So they're above five, sometimes even going to thousands.
Hmm.
The difference between Lobo's first appearance and their first appearance is that at this time they're more desirable, and in
Yeah.
being more desirable, they are people are not giving them up. So
But
people are
it's got the
buying.
cool cover factor. It's got
It
the
got
cool
the cool
cover
cover, the
factor.
nice
It's got the
colors to it.
badass look factor,
Yeah,
right?
it has
There's a
everything.
lot going on here.
So
You're right. I think this book is great. The only thing, as far as from a financial perspective, is going to be that print run. But you know what? People are going to hoard them.
yep,
People are going to
and
hoard
that's
them.
the point.
And you know what? It's going to be an easy one to attain, which is going to increase its popularity. And yeah, I mean, again, once we get that first we got a couple of sneak shots, right? A couple of teasers, a couple of shots, a couple of
I
stills of
think they
him in
were
the makeup.
fakes. My thing was they were
Uh,
fakes.
well, they had some set picks that made it out,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
But once we get a trailer where he speaks, dude, and God, who only knows what we're getting out of that Supergirl movie? I mean, she waltzes in. Okay, whatever. I don't know if it's too soon, but
Oh
whatever.
no,
You
that's
know,
everybody's seen the movie by now. It's $600
yeah, I
million.
know.
I
So
think
she
enough people
waltzes
saw it.
in drunk. She's partying on other planets. This dude's a space biker, badass, degenerate too. I can only imagine what that movie is going to be like. And you know what? You're right. I think we're going to get another pop for this book in the future. So again, secure your copies for under $100 now. And if you're dead set on getting a 9.8, spend a few dollars, send it to a reputable presser and get it graded, and then maybe you have yourself a little, investment piece in another year. But don't
Mhm.
wait, because as we get closer to that movie, at the first trailer, we will see the typical market value spike, which is going to go whoop. So,
And then it's
and
gonna
who knows
cool
how
off
far
a
it
little
goes?
bit.
It,
Yeah.
it usually does, but you never know.
Mhm.
Never know.
There's certain
The
characters
beauty
that
of
just
comics.
kind of just stays up there. Deadpool just stays up there. You know what
Yep.
I mean? So
And
Lobo
and is
Lobo
this
is one of those
DC's
characters.
answer to Deadpool?
Absolutely. All right, moving on to our next book in our list here. This is a character that he wouldn't have made this list if it wasn't for a TV show that's currently running right now that's in its second season. I'm referring to a Adrian Chase Vigilante. Vigilante is one of those characters that came out in the 80s that DC had a tendency of creating these characters that no one cared about. He's one of those characters that no one give a damn about until we get him in Peacemaker. And the character of Adrian Chase and the actor that plays him, I don't know his name, he killed it with this character, still kills it.
Oh yeah.
He made his debut in another Teen Titans movie, comic book, New Teen Titans Annual #2. This one came out in 1983 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $470 at 9.8. That was in March of 2022. Last sale of this book was $10 no gray. It's actually a very, very affordable book.
Yes.
$23 near mint for the Raws, $121 for 9.8. There's 1,591 copies in the census. This is the first appearance of Vigilante Adrian Chase. It's also the first appearance of the Harbinger Leah Michaels, who was a big part of the Crisis on Infinite Earth comic book.
Yeah.
But we're going to be focusing our attention more so on Vigilante because what James Gunn did with this character. First of all, the costume. I've always had I had a soft spot for the costume because it screams out ski suit from the 80s and stuff like that.
Yep.
And it's George Perez again as well here. Vigilante became such a fan favorite character as a result of Peacemaker.
Yep.
He's so much fun to
He
watch,
is a
man.
cosplay superhero, dude. He's a cosplay super. He's like, you have no business being a superhero, but you are, right? And the whole Peacemaker series is based on that too. I mean, listen, Peacemaker was a throwaway Charlton character that nobody cared
Yeah.
about, really. To be honest, they tried to make him something, didn't really pan out. He had a short, limited run back in the
Oh, but keep
'60s.
in mind, Peacemaker is the prototype to the comedian from Watchmen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's a lot. And this book, listen, man, Perez and Wolfman gave us so much gold. They gave us so much gold. They gave so much. And you know what? Another annual. So again,
Mhm.
books that people didn't really think was going to be a big thing. So getting them in high grade is going to be tough because again, annuals were just throwaway books. They were throwaway books. And then you didn't hear from Vigilante for a long time. But the smart money knew, like you could have picked, you could have picked this book up for like
Oh,
$5
I
for
have a copy
decades.
somewhere hanging around here.
Yeah, $5 for
I
decades. You could have picked this book up.
You can still pick it up for pretty cheap. It's like 10, like I said, $10, no grade. It says no grade, but trust me, it's a good grade.
Yeah, I
It's a cheap book.
mean, but a 121 for a 9.8, listen, that's a good bet right now. So I purposely have not watched season 2 yet
Oh, dude,
because I
it's
can't
hilarious.
stand the thought
Just
of only
don't
being able
put
to
it.
watch one
Don't watch it with
episode and
kids.
not having
Don't watch it
more.
with kids. That's all I'll say.
I'll be honest, man. Like, I know people who could care less about comic books that watched Peacemaker at me badgering them to do it and then came back and were like, holy hell. I can't believe what I just watched.
We're
I
two
can't believe that
episodes
they
in.
let that even be filmed. So now that
Oh,
I have
wait till you
two
see this season.
episodes and we got a long weekend, so I'm going to watch the first two episodes this weekend and enjoy them after the kids go to bed, obviously.
Yeah,
But
you gotta make the kids go to bed for
Adrian
the first
Chase,
episode.
man, listen, that quickly became one of my favorite things to watch, man. And once I saw that show, I was like, Gun's gonna do it, man. Gun's gonna do it because I love it. John Cena, I mean, there's nothing about that show that I didn't love. Nothing. Now, the one thing I will say, I did tease myself. I wanted to watch the trailer, the beginning, the opening sequence.
Yeah.
Don't love the new song. They say
Eh,
it grows on you. I don't love the new song.
it's not better than the first one,
It's
but
not.
it's fun.
Wigwam.
It's still funny watching it because you know that they were struggling. Some people, so
Yeah.
behind the scenes that some of the actors were terrible dancers and they just couldn't
Like
do it.
Frank
So they
Grillo.
do it. And Frank Grillo laughs at the end. He's turning his head like covering himself because he can't stop laughing. That's
Yeah,
how
I mean,
funny that scene is.
but I was just like, all right. I was so excited to hear the Wigwam song, and then I heard that they changed it. I was not thrilled. I
Yeah.
downloaded that song. So did a lot of people, bro. I know a lot of people that downloaded. Nobody knew who the frig Wigwam was. And then you saw that show, and you're like, I love this song now. I'm sitting there playing in the car, going like this, pretending I have hair. It was great.
Oh
And so
man.
I was a little let down to find out it wasn't going to be brought again, but I could always just listen to it in my earphones and then unmute
Yeah.
it after it starts.
So there you have it, guys. Vigilante, Adrian Chase. He's the standout to me in the show. He is
Yeah,
so good,
phenomenal.
man. He is so hilarious in this. Like everything about him is like he's like a 5-year-old kid stuck in a man's body because
Yep.
he's clearly wants to be best friends with Peacemaker. And Peacemaker's like he just has him around like a sidekick and stuff like and he just doesn't get it, but he's so crazy and
He's the
especially that one.
embodiment of a fanboy.
Yeah, he's a little and but right when they had the thing that he needed to shoot somebody, that Peacemaker couldn't do it because he ended up getting he just went boop boop boop. And he like you're in,
Yeah, like they were playing a bit. It's like he's like a gamer cosplayer who got sucked into this reality,
and he loves it, and he absolutely
and he
loves it.
loves it.
But he doesn't understand or comprehend any of it. He's just
It's
like he's
so
enjoying it.
dry. It's so dry and unforced that it's great. It just
The
really
glasses
is.
do it too, man. The glasses sell it, man. It's so
It's like
perfect.
Napoleon Dynamite, like just snapped one day, and now he's vigilante.
Oh, so awesome, man. All right, let's get to one more before we get to a bigger one. But I'm not to say that this ain't a big character, but I think his days are coming, and that is a character by the name of Beta Ray Bill, the the mighty horse, I'll call him. He made his debut in a phenomenal cover by Walter Simonson, Thor 337. This book came out in 1983 from Marvel Comics. High sell this book is $1,400 at 9.8. That was in October of 2021. Last sale, this book's $139 at 9.6. Raws go for $55 at a very fine. $295 for 9.8. There's currently 9,879 copies in the census. This is the moment where Marvel said, Walter, do whatever you want with this book. We don't care. And he gave us this. Who would have guessed that we would have gotten the mighty horse known as
I mean,
Beta Ray Bill? And it worked. It just worked, dude. So that
listen.
cover is awesome.
People love Beta Ray Bill, and let me tell you something. Ragnarok teased us, teased us so badly when we saw his face
We know
on
he
that
exists in
statue.
some way.
So we were all pretty sure we were going to get him in one form or fashion. I was like many people. I was hoping that the madness, multiverse of madness, would have given us Beta Ray Bill, but we didn't get it. Of course, would have been too easy. But I mean, you talk about an iconic cover. We throw that word around, I think, quite a bit these days. I don't know if we've given the word iconic the reverence it really deserves anymore. But I mean, this is an iconic cover. It has been homaged time and time again. Arguably, Walt Simonson's most recognizable cover
Yeah.
ever.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows this is a Walt book. Everyone has one. Everyone wants one. And in my opinion, again, you got to remember the early '80s was the emergence of the direct and newsstand, right? So that's why the print runs were really high for these books because now they had this new thing called comic book shops that they had to cater to along with the already existing distribution outlets, which were newsstands, literally, pharmacies, so on and so forth. So that's why there was a really high print one. People want to bitch about the 90s and everything, about the print runs then. But this was really when print runs started getting pumped up. But it wasn't for any other reason other than now there were two different markets to sell books, and they had to, supply both. So that's
Yeah.
really why the print runs are higher in the early 80s, even into the mid 80s. You know, but again, this is a book that everyone should have in their collection. It's an affordable key at this point. And if you're not a grade whore like I'm not, and you're happy with a nice looking book, there's still great looking affordable copies. You can still read it. But I think this is one that is a sleeper. You're right. We're going to get Beta Ray Bill at some point, and your best interest is if you do want a high graded copy, you don't have to pay the COVID price in that graphic over there, but you can get a really nice looking copy at a reasonable rate now, and it's gonna definitely take its place where it belongs at some point because
Yeah.
in my opinion, it's one of those
It's hard to
undervalued books.
yeah, it's one of those covers too that's hard to keep it clean because of the white background as well. We talk about blacks. Blacks show everything, but whites get
Mhm.
dirty fast. So that's
Right.
why I think people like yellow more than anything.
Yes.
uh, but
Yes.
but again, iconic. The energy that you feel from this comic, you could feel him breaking the letters. You could feel the corner box being broken. You could feel that lightning bolt coming through
Yep.
from this image because Beta Ray Bill, man, is again amazing character,
And people were
amazing.
taken aback. They're like, "Wait, Thor, the Thunder God, the peak of the demigods, and the
Mhm.
beautiful hair and the handsome face and everything. You made him a horse. People didn't understand what was going on here when they
Mhm.
saw this cover. That's the first time you ever saw him, and here he is,
Yeah.
Thor. And yeah, it's like, and this was also peak writing at this point, man. Too.
Mhm.
It was so
Exactly, man.
good,
So
so
good.
good.
Anyway, so before we move on to the next book, because I know you're gonna be excited about the next book, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in your neck of the woods and what you got planned for really just a couple of days now, right?
Oh man, interesting times indeed, my friend. Interesting times indeed. So what was originally supposed to be a band-aid on a broken arm during COVID, thanks to my partner Lenny in Florida and the people around us that really made this happen. Mike Carbo and everybody else that really kept me in this business. Like every time I tried to get out, they pulled me back in. I'm like, dude, I want to go back to suits and expense reports and flying around and
I can't
comic books,
see
comic
you
books.
in that suits with ties and stuff.
It,
That
you
doesn't
know what?
that
It's really funny because people like think that meet me now think this is who I've been for the last 2 decades. Personality wise, yes, this is who I've been, and you could ask my wife, much to her chagrin, it doesn't really change. But yeah, I was a suit for like 15 years. A corporate guy. I had a much different job, much different career. But getting into this was interesting. And again, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, are you going to be doing this for a living? I'd be like, yo, who's your weed guy, bro? Can I get their number? What are the going rates? That's what it would have been. But I love this stuff so much. I've been a comic fan for so long, my whole life, since I was a small kid. And, I met such great people like yourself included, and just, three men in a basement. So many people who really helped make this a reality. And now, it's going a bit further, right, with the streaming services. So we met up with a group, Crash Media Partners, which brought us in touch with the Den of Geek, another bunch of great guys. And you all should be following Den of Geek as well. And they invited us in to join them for these live charity auctions. You tell me there's a charity thing, say less. I'm there. I'm gonna go do it. I'm all about it. And which then turned into a recurring thing with Michael Carbonaro and I, which has now metamorphed, if you will, into what could be some original programming next year. I'm not allowed to talk about everything yet, but I can let you know that there is original programming in the works. Obviously, I've done the morning press with my group, Pop Mosaic, which is the media branch of this little concoction we've got going on here. And I'm so excited, very grateful to everybody involved. But yeah, so thanks to Crash Media Partners, thanks to 451, which is another group behind the scenes. If you Google it, you can see who's involved. So I'm kind of excited and looking forward to doing some really new stuff in the future. It's looking like it's going to be a talk show, kind of like Joe Rogan comic books minus the political leanings. So I'm excited for it. So we're going to have a lot of cool things. And of course, guys, SpineWorks NYC is open for business. Cleaning, pressing, grading, signature series. You see us at the shows. We actually still work. I'm not Hollywood, bro. I still work. I'm still running around, standing on lines, pressing books, burning my hands on, super hot metal plates. My team is awesome. I got Smiling John. I got the Squirrel. And you know what? There's a lot of good coming out of it. And thanks to, our customers, our support, and people coming through to the boutique as well. Who'd have thought I'd have a mini comic shop?
Mhm.
Like never thought this would be happening. But like we're super grateful. So make sure you follow us, SpineWorks NYC. Come down to the boutique. You got to come and hang out, man. You got
Yeah,
to
I
come
gotta
down.
go down there. It's just Queens, man. You know how it is. It's like a completely different
Bro,
universe.
whoa, 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 whoa.
I'm just
Spider Man
saying.
comes from Queens.
You
Spider Man
know how
comes from Queens.
Spider-Man comes from Queens, but you got the White Tiger. I'm sorry. Uh,
You got the white tiger.
but you know how it is. Um, that bridge, man, it is really a divider, man. It is a
It really
divider.
is.
Like you can't even like the reality of it is for those people who don't know, New York City is very odd. We have the five boroughs. We don't even acknowledge Staten Island as one of them.
Oh, that's
A-
you're right,
And
though.
it's true.
You're
Like
right.
Bronx and Manhattan, we got kind of like a little love affair going on here and there and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then Brooklyn and Queens have their love affair because it's the king and the queen, right? But for
The Bronx
besides
is
that,
Manhattan's side piece.
well, yeah, it's something like that, right?
Manhattan's
But
side piece.
anybody, but
Real
like if you
talk.
take the train for like the trains, for example, if you take the
Yeah.
trains, there is no train that connects the Bronx to Queens or obviously Brooklyn. There's no train. You got to take a bus. You have
Yeah.
to go
You got a
through
bus.
Manhattan.
Or you got
You
to
got to go
transfer.
to Manhattan to go to Queens. That is an hour and a half ride
Unless
in
you
many cases.
drive. Unless you drive.
But if you drive, you got to go pay an $8 toll both ways.
That's how we keep y'all out.
Well, that's how we
That's
prevent from going
I'll,
over there. You
well, the
guys are
Subway series. We get a
you
lot of crossover from the Subway
well,
series,
yeah,
though.
it's the Subway series, of course, but keep that in mind. The fact that you're connected to Long Island, so you're technically all Long Island to
I
us.
know. I know.
It's
I know.
so
It's fair.
you even got
It's
Long
fair.
Island City, so that's what it is. So to go out to Queens, I gotta make it a thing. I used to have a
It's true.
girlfriend, now I don't, and
Yeah.
I'm happy. I
Well, we
got a
can
wife
find you a
that's
new.
here.
Listen, where better to find a woman than 80s
Yeah,
reference? 80s
I know
reference.
what you're talking
Point if you
about.
get it.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm not gonna even repeat what he
Oh
says
man, Coming
afterwards.
to America is one of the best movies ever. The '80s was so good to us,
I
dude.
know, man.
We don't
Let's.
we don't love the '80s enough. I'm glad you asked me to do this show, bro, because we
You
do
ready?
not love the '80s enough.
You
I'm
ready for the
ready.
next one? You
Let's
ready for the
do it.
next one? All
I
right.
feel like I know what it's gonna be.
Our next one. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, buddy.
It
Yeah.
it finally happened. Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. They made their first appearance in a little comic book called The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 that came out in 1984 from Mirage Studios. That's as
Yeah, man.
indie as indie gets. Get this. This is our most expensive comic book in this list. High sale of this book is $245,000 September 1st,
Oh,
2021. Whew, I know. Tell me about it. That's crazy. Last sale of this book was $34,001. They had to throw
wow.
in the dollar, didn't it? And that was not
Yeah,
even a
you gotta
98.
get that
That was
$1.
a 96. That was a
I hope there was
96.
free shipping.
The raw, I know, right? That's like a Brinks truck shipping. That's what that is. The raws the raws on average, the raws are $12,955. The average grade for this book is an 8.5, and that's
Wow.
going for $11,367. There's currently
Damn.
1,165 copies because it does have a low print run. There's about 3,000 copies in the existence of the first print. There's plenty of prints
Yeah.
that follow this book because this book was printed heavily, as far
And
as
counterfeited.
and counterfeited. So it's a big book. You got something. to show off, don't you?
I, I do, I guess. Yeah, man. So, so this is my copy of the first print, right? So this was a book, and shout out to Mike Carbo for making this happen because I bought this book literally a week before my son was born. So not really
Aren't you
prime
lucky?
time to be spending that kind of money on this book. But I have a very understanding wife, and she's known that I have wanted one of these for so long. And you know what? Thankfully, she was cool with it. So yeah, so it's a 6.0. It's signed. It has never been pressed. It has never been cleaned. Yes, I know people wondering, well, why didn't you do it? I don't care. This is my book. I love this thing so much. I kind of want to leave it the way it is because I'm so proud to own it and it means so much to me that I don't want to even touch it. Like I want to leave it as is. This is a big pickup. It's a milestone book for me. People ask me my name all the time, Michael Raphael. Were you named after the Turtles? No, I was born before the Turtles came out.
His
So
name out of two
clearly, I had it first. So I feel like Eastman owes me some money, but Laird really owns the property and the IP for the most part before
Yeah.
he sold it to Nickelodeon. So Nickelodeon, you owe me some money. But
So show that
you
book
know,
again. There was something I saw there that you didn't really
yes,
show off. Let's see. There it is. Who did that little piece of that thing?
that is signed. But yes, this is signed by Kevin Eastman and sketched. So yeah, this
That
is a proud piece of my collection, man. This is my crown jewel. Like this would be the last book I ever sold if I had to do everything. I would rather do some unspeakable things in seedy neighborhoods than sell this book if I had to pay the bills.
so
So,
tell me, Michael Raphael,
yes.
what is it about the turtles that is so awesome?
Man, it's funny. I have a very personal story that really created this. At least for me, right? Everyone has their own reason. The Turtles fans are ravenous, dedicated, loyal fan base. They really are. But so my personal story is my uncle Billy, who was the first person to really get me into comics when I was a kid. He brought me all my first comics, and we got to remember this book came out in 1984. Like I said, at this point, I just learned how to stop eating the crayons and use them on paper. So my uncle used to bring comic books over for me all the time, which is when I started, flipping through with them. And then at the same time, I was learning how to read. So it had to be a year or two after this came out. And you got to remember, when this book came out, they couldn't give it away. They could not give this book away. No one wanted it.
Hmm.
Warlord came out at the same time, and that was the book everyone thought was going to be like the
Yeah.
next big thing. So
Mhm.
no one gave this thing a second thought. They're like, Ninja Turtles, who the hell wants this? And it's
I
black
have a
and
close
white,
friend. I
and
have a
it's
close friend who
big.
walked away from this book.
Dude, everyone who was really into comics at that point, most people did. Most people walked away from it. It was black and white. It was weird. It wasn't necessarily for kids. So if you've ever opened up a Ninja Turtles #1, you will realize that this is not a book for children. It is not radical dude, yeah, pizza eating, everyone. No, 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 no. This is a very different type of comic book. Again, heavily influenced by the underground comics that were going around. And if you know the history of Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird and their story, they were fans of underground comics. And in fact, you could find their art in quite a few of them if you know where to look, right? It's like you got to go to the 4chan of comic boxes to find these
Yeah.
books. And then when you open them up, you're like, oh, this is what the Turtles guys were doing? Oh,
It's also a
okay. Look at
parody.
that.
A lot of people, some people don't know this. This is a parody of Daredevil.
Yes.
It's a parody
Standing
of
on the
Daredevil.
rooftop.
Hmm.
And because
Everything
they
about
well,
it.
Jack Kirby was their biggest influence. In fact, he's thanked on the inside cover. You will flip it open. There is a turtle standing there, and it says, in honor of Jack Kirby. That's literally what's on the inside. And if you ever watch the Toys That Made Us, which was a great thing to watch, by the way, they go into their love for comics, how they became friends, how they came up with, the idea for the turtles and everything else. So interesting thing, you mentioned the print run of this book. So the print run was actually just shy of 3,300 initially, right? And then there were about 200 copies floating around, which were like the artist proofs, gifts for their family, so on and so forth. So out of those 3,000, nobody really knows how many survived. The only thing we can go on is the census. Now, CGC has 1165, which I think is a recent number. Uh, CBCS only has like 14. So there's only 14 people who said, "Let me send this book to CBCS." PGX, I'm fairly certain there's none, and we don't know how many raw floating around.
Yeah.
So when you think about a global phenomena, which and we're looking forward to the last round, but anyway, a global phenomena. This I could see the price of this book being what it is, right? I understand why. There is probably, I would say, there's less than 2,000 left. If I had to guess, it's
Yeah.
probably less than 2,000. Because think of how many people bought this book and then were pissed off that they bought it,
Hmm.
right? They bought this book and they were like, "What is this?" And they gave it to little kids, right? So going back to my Uncle Billy who got me into comics, he gave me this book probably 1985, 86. I opened it up. I didn't know anything about the turtles at this point. I didn't know the color scheme, none of that stuff. But I knew turtles were green, right? I know what color certain things were, like cars and backgrounds and whatever. I colored the book in. I colored. I took my markers. Dude, I was like, what, 6, right? If even. So I'm like 6 years old. You gave it to me. I'm like, oh, it's a coloring book. So I colored this thing in. He took that back from me. And the only thing I ever got after that was ElfQuest and Team America, which I still love ElfQuest, by the way. Which also explains why I
Elfquest is
love
pretty good
ElfQuest.
too, man.
I love ElfQuest. But anyway, so my uncle died in my early teens. He was unfortunately we lost him, and he got me into comics. He brought me to Michael Carbonaro when I was around 12 years old, and I bought my first comic book from him, which was Spawn #1 with my own money. So it's so weird how this thing goes full circle. And I think when we talk about nostalgia, I think there's not only the general nostalgia we all share as in fandom, but we all have our own personal stories as to why we love these things, right? Whether it's comics, whether it's movies, whether it's music, there's always a personal reason behind the general thing of togetherness and unity as fans. But that's my story. And I'm sure everyone out there has a similar one, why they love their heroes. But the Turtles is my favorite book, right? My favorite cartoon as a kid, and for the personal reasons, and just it's awesome, man. You have all types of personalities captured, right? Anyone could be the turtles because they're turtles, right? So you're never going to run into the issues that we have with real human characters, right? Or even meta-human characters. The things that people argue about these days that divide the fans, and it really just it ticks me off as someone who loves this stuff, right? You're never gonna have to worry about quote unquote swapping or arguing. Whatever side you're on doesn't even matter. These things will be irrelevant because they're turtles. Turtles.
Mhm.
Now, if you turn them into hamsters like they tried doing with the black belt radioactive hamsters, then you might get some people that are annoyed, right? You try to turn them into lizards or snakes or whatever. But anyone could be a turtle, and I think that's everyone can see themselves in one of these four. And I think
Awesome.
that's the draw of it, and that's what's going to keep it going in perpetuity.
Yeah, and the turtles, like you said, Nickelodeon has the rights to them right now. They're just continuously milking because they still make money to this day.
Yeah,
Different renditions of the turtles. Some of them they keep them in that same kind of. This has been their attitude. This is how they respond. Like
yeah,
Mikey's always been the cowabunga kid, and
yep,
Donatello's always been the dorky one of the bunch, and Raphael's always the hothead. So they've always kept that in them, their DNA
yeah. Did you
in them.
think that it was ironic that the Blue Boy Scout
Hmm.
Leonardo
Of course.
is Superman Blue? Do you ever think that was like coincidence?
No,
Because I don't think that was coincidence.
I think a lot of it was based off the fact that we are giving you our love letter to comic books because that's
Yeah,
what they were doing. They were doing a love letter to Frank Miller's Daredevil run, and
hmm,
even though it's four turtles, it's the same ooze that blinded Daredevil, which I think is a great way of looking at it. Um,
yeah,
the turtles are here to stay, guys. This is the most expensive book in this list because of not just the nostalgic factor, but because of how it has transitioned beyond comic books to the
yeah.
pop culture landscape. And another comic book that I'm going to talk about. It's not in the same vein as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but had a run-in with the Turtles. is a character by the name of Usagi Yojimbo. This is one that really strikes a chord because, again, similar to the Turtles, I think Usagi Yojimbo was one of those characters that kind of like came out of nowhere. Another indie creation by Stan Sakai that was debuted in an indie comic book called Dots and Images. That's the name of the company. Abeto, I never got the name right. It's Abeto #2. This book came out in 1984, the same time frame. High sale of this book is $55,200 and 9.8. That was last year in January. The last sale of this book is $5,760 at 8.0. Raws go for $5,950 at a fine, believe it or not.
If you
Eight
could
thousand
find
seven
one.
hundred. Yeah, $8,700 at 9.4. Again, black cover. There's your answer to that. 309 copies in the census. That's how rare this book is. And though the Turtles book has a lot of value to it because of who they are and how they transition from comic books to pop culture landscape, Usagi Yojimbo has pretty much maintained his lane. He crosses over every so often. There has been animated versions of the character, but he's just an indie darling. That's what he
Yeah,
is. He's an indie darling, and it has a lot to do with Stan Sakai. So, what's your
yeah.
thoughts on?
Stan Sakai has an amazing fan base, super talented, and you know what? There was obviously there was an action figure made. The crossover was inevitable, and again, same lineage, right? It was a black and white comic book. It was out of left field. Who wants to see rabbits fighting? It went along the same thing. Like no one wanted it until they realized they needed it, right? And this book is more rare than even the Ninja Turtles #1 because it really
300
is.
copies of the census is a big deal.
I did delve into the numbers once, and if I remember reading correctly, I mean, I think there were less than even 2,000 ever printed of this book. Because again, it's a teeny tiny publisher taking a chance on these characters, and there were other issues. Obviously, there was #1, nobody really knows. There was #3, 4. There's different ones that you can get. But it was a low print comic run to begin with. So again, no one thought. And if you read this too, again, this is another story. And even if you read Usagi Jumbo #1, not necessarily made for children. And a
No.
lot of people looked at it was like it looks childish, but it's not. So people didn't get it, and I think it was coming off of like Mad Magazine and other things that were cartoonish in aesthetically cartoonish, but we're dealing with more adult situations and put into more adult situations, kind of trying to make fun of it. But a lot of that could be also attributed to the underground comic scene, made popular by like Robert Crumb and those sorts of artists that were really it looked funny, but then it's wrong at the same time, like Cherry Pop Tart and Snatch Comics and Zap and all these other things that were going on, simultaneously. And these were people who were creating these comics and these characters saying, "Can I walk the line between underground comics and superheroes?" And this is another instance where I guess you could. And again, martial arts movies were extremely popular in the 80s as well.
Mhm.
So it's no surprise that we have, a lot of different martial arts, themed characters come out. Just like we had the gangsters and martial artists. This is what
Kung
was
fu
going on.
movies.
And again, yeah,
Yeah.
they were huge. Everyone used to watch kung fu movies with their grandparents. I don't know if you
Saturday
did.
afternoons, baby.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, we can't
Yeah.
talk about that song that was also from the '80s, which is a dope song, but now it's offensive, which I think sucks. But everybody was kung fu fighting. There, I did it. Now I just
but
ruined it. Now I'm getting all kinds of
but
hate mail now.
I know, right? But the reality, yeah, kung fu fighting. You think that one's bad? You think turning Japanese is a good one? I got your picture. Anyway,
Oh
um,
man,
eh, think about it. So
I love the
what
'80s.
was great about I love you too, bro. So we talk about Saturday morning cartoons, but what was awesome about Saturday mornings was that it was a full day experience, right? So
Yeah.
Saturday morning started with the cartoons. Then for me as a kid, it went from cartoons to watching wrestling, right? Because they usually have the wrestling shows at like noon or something like that. So I got to see wrestling, and then it was the kung fu movie of the week, where
hmm
you will watch it, and that was it. So, and this one here, I think it's an homage to the kung fu movies, but it's also an homage to manga comics. Because
Yeah,
manga comics at that time was not what they are today. No one really cared about manga back then. They
yeah,
had a following with comics like Akira. Dragon Ball Z came a little much later, but it was there. But Voltron was a big part of it, and all these things were part of it. And what Stan Sakai was doing, it was bringing that flair into Western civilization, where
yeah.
we were getting, um, what is feudal Japan? That's what this is about. It's feudal Japan, but done through the eyes of anamorphic characters, which are
Yep.
animals with that have human characteristics to them. And this character, it's hard to always say his name,
Usagi
Usagi
Yojimbo.
Yojimbo. And I messed up names all the time. You guys know me by now. He's just one of those characters that I was like, damn, man, this guy stood the test of time. So
Yeah,
this day
I
they're
mean,
still printing it.
and he's still getting current titles, still
Yep.
popular, still prevalent. And again, I I'm wondering if we're going to get a live action. We had the
This
Space
one that
Usagi,
one's a
which wasn't
I
terrible.
think this is where it gets a little hard to pull it off. But if they pull it off, it'll be great and we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? It's hard to pull off a rabbit.
We
Just
got
saying.
turtles, bro. We got turtles.
They get turtles, but I think a rabbit might be a little more challenging. Furry creature. Ooh, keep it serious.
I don't know,
I'm
man. I
just
think it'd be
saying.
cool. I would like
If,
it. I
I
would
think
really
it's worth
like
a
it.
shot, and I think it will eventually happen. But it's also Stan Sakai who has to make that approval at the end of the day. So
Yeah, he was smart to retain all the rights to his character. Good idea.
exactly. All right, let's talk about a character here who made his appearance in the 80s. He was actually pretty big and prevalent in the 80s towards the 90s. And then he went through some metamorphosis by the way of a guy by the name of Keanu Reeves. I'm talking about none other than John Constantine, the Hellblazer. He made his debut in the saga of the Swamp Thing. I love the fact that it was called the Saga of the Swamp Thing, issue 37 by Alan Moore. This book came out in 1985 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $2,700 at a 9.8. That was in August of 2021. $499 at a 9.6 was the last sale. $206 for the Raws at Fine. $436 at 9.6 for graded. 4,430 copies. John Constantine is made, I want to say made famous by Keanu Reeves, but I think he was famous before that. Um, the Hellblazer. One of the coolest British characters that they decided to turn American, but yet that movie has a cult following to the point that they're bringing him back in some case.
So good. I mean, the show was good too. I mean, listen, it was a character that I am glad they put this much attention on. You know, it's a part of the DC comic lore, like the more magical aspect, which those of you who read a lot of comics would know can mess with Superman at least. It's the only facet of that universe that does make Superman, vulnerable. Shazam. That's why Shazam can go toe to toe with Superman. Constantine can put up, well, provided he lives long enough to say his incantation, could put up a fight against Superman, right? Zatanna. And we get all these cool characters, and then Justice League Dark, which is awesome. Justice League Dark, one of my favorite team ups in comics, vastly underused, except for an awesome animated movie, which was phenomenal. And I think we're going to get some of that from the James Gunn universe. Constantine coming back. Will it be Keanu Reeves? I don't know. And then what was the gentleman that played him in the show? Was it Matt something?
Matt's no, that's someone else. Matt's the name, but I don't remember on top of my head.
So like it was just good. Like Constantine's a great character. The fact that those of you who don't know the quick lore behind it, like he was going to die of cancer, and then he went to hell, and then he's an agent of hell, sort of, but he ends up being a good guy, so he turns the tables on them. He can see demons, he can see ghosts, he can be an exorcist, he can be a summoner. It's really cool, and like the whole thing is like inevitably he's got to go to hell, and so he's basically staying on Earth long enough so that he doesn't have to, and as long as he keeps doing deeds and sending souls down, he doesn't have to go back to hell. So it's in his best interest to kind of be a good guy. And I think
Yeah,
it's funny. He walks the
but he
line.
can't. But he's
He's a
still
good
a
guy
jerk
because he
in
has
some
to
way.
be. Yeah, oh, he's a total d-bag. but you know, but he's a lovable. He's our d bag, okay? So the character is awesome, and I'm kind of excited to know that there is going to be a renewed interest in it and bringing him into the modern comics as well as the DCU possibly. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think what there is talks about Keanu returning to the character because again, when it came out, this was at a time where Keanu Reeves was kind of going through his first renaissance. This is like off the Matrix. John
Mhm.
Wick didn't happen just yet, so it was still it was still at that point. But everybody, I remember everybody talking about it at that time was like Keanu Reeves is John Constantine. Wait, no, no, it's like first of all he's blonde. Second of all he's British. Wow, and then when you
And
see
third of
this
all, that's
movie,
Ted.
yeah, and then well, he was also Neo at the time, so I think that was okay.
Yeah,
Um, so when you saw this happening, you were like cautious, but you accepted it. It was one of those rare occasions where you just said, you know what, I'm going to buy into this, though he's not the same character in the comic book. I
yeah,
like this version, and I think that ended up getting loved. It ended up becoming a cult classic as well. There are
yeah,
discussions of a sequel coming out, which Keanu is attached to it. It will be an Elseworld story. It won't be attached to the DCU, but I could see them bringing John Constantine because they are going to bring a horror element into the
yeah,
DC universe with Clayface and obviously Swamp Things by James Mangold is part of that plan. So we'll see what happens. Constantine's
yeah.
just a cool character, man. I think he's one of the coolest characters in DC Comics.
There's a lot that can be done with John Constantine. So I think we're going to get it. Whether or not it plays a role in the main universe will remain to be seen. But then again, remember multiverses, right?
Exactly. So
So
let's talk about a character who is the equal to a Nick Fury. However, dare I say it, she is more of a badass. And I'm talking about Amanda Waller. Amanda Waller made her debut in the weirdest place, Legends #1 in 1991 for DC Comics. This has a high sale of $200 and 9.8. That was in December of 2024. Last sale of this book was $74 and 9.6. Raws are going for $10 at a very fine. This book is very affordable. $95 at a 9.8 is the average. 821 copies in the census. That number is actually kind of surprising to me, being that there's so many books of this
yeah,
copy. Amanda Waller, again, this is one of those books that suffers from her not being in the cover, but
hmm
it is also where we get to learn about this woman who is some people call her a villain. I don't clearly see that. I think she does whatever it needs to be done. If that's what
she you know
that's the
what
case.
she's morally or ethically ambiguous when doing
Yes.
the right thing or doing the
Yeah.
job, right? I guess that's the whole dichotomy with that character, right? Is she doing the right thing because it's the right thing, or does she just want to be the best at her job? So
Yeah, so there's
it's
like
that
we're
thing. Is
not
it the
sure.
ego or is it your ethics? Which is it?
Yeah, she
And
could
we
go
and we
toe to
see
toe
that.
with she's literally could go toe to toe with Batman in that way, right? Where
Yeah,
she's not afraid of Bruce Wayne.
no,
She's in no way afraid of him, and that's saying a lot. This is a person that she knows who she is, she knows her role, she knows what she needs to get done. Whatever needs to get done, she will do it.
yeah.
Whether that's
But
killing a
she
whole bunch of
respects
villains in
Bruce
the
Wayne.
process.
But she respects Bruce Wayne. And she
Exactly.
understands how to capitalize. She is the epitome of the person who knows you do not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Whether it's
Yeah.
her use of Suicide Squad or Task Force X, whether it's her leveraging relationships with Bruce Wayne, with Superman and everyone else that she comes into contact with. And you know what? It just works. It works. And Viola Davis, I mean,
Yeah.
what? I
She's
mean,
great in the role. She's
love
awesome
it.
in that role.
Love it. So it is a super badass character, and I think one of the reasons she really wasn't prominently featured in this book is it wasn't about her. She was,
Mhm.
she was a figurehead in an organization, but I don't know if they knew how much, how involved she would be in the going forward. I don't know how well received they would think Task Force X or Suicide Squad. however you want to call it, was going for it. So this was also, the resurgence of the Suicide Squad, and in the same series is when you were introduced to the new Suicide Squad as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
So you had the original version back in the Brave and the Bold. Then you had the second version created by Howard Chaykin in Suicide Squad #1, and then you had the new iteration, which was this one, and then again redone in the New 52, which is the
Yeah,
Suicide
with John
Squad that we know
Ostrander.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was it I was gonna think about? So she was one of the rare characters that came out of the DCEU, and they were like, "No, we got to keep Viola Davis. She's coming with us."
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh
James
yeah.
Gunn's not nice. Yeah, she ain't going nowhere. She's staying. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like
Oh,
she's
so
that
good.
good, that good in
Yeah.
the role. All right, let's move on to another character. I think is a very fun character from the '80s, and again, we've seen glimpses of him every so often. We haven't really gotten a live action. We did get a live action of him before, but I don't think it really stood. And that's a character by the name of Booster Gold. Booster Gold to me is everything I loved about the '80s. He is a character to me that it's like he's so much fun. He's from the future. He's a complete con artist. This is
Hmm.
right up James Gunn's alley. He made his first appearance in his own book, Booster Gold #1 in 1986. This has a high sale of $699 at a 9.8. That was in February of 2023. $90 is the last sale at a 9.4. Rawls goes for $64 at a very fine $125 at 9.6. There's currently 2,006 copies in the census. It's the first appearance of Booster Gold. It's also the first appearance of his robot sidekick, who I absolutely love. It Skeets. First appearance of the Blackguard, Trixie Collins, who later be known as Gold Star. And there's even a cameo appearance by the characters of Mind Dancer. I don't know anything about Mind Dancer, but what I do know is about Booster Gold.
Yep.
Dan Jurgens, man, did
Dan
a
Jurgens is mad at
great.
me. Sorry, Dan. Dan
He
Jurgens
did a
is mad at
great
me, and it's technically not even my fault. So I owe Dan Jurgens a phone call. So Dan, if you see this, I'm sorry. It was a miscommunication. So really, he's mad at me, and I love Dan Jurgens. So it hurts me here. But I had to go home because I had baby crying. But anyway, trying to make an early departure from to RiverCon. Some stuff going on, and I left instructions. They weren't followed, and now Dan Jurgens mad at me.
the guy who killed Superman. You pissed off the guy who killed Superman.
I
Just think about
know, right? Dude, I'm like, I gotta sleep with one eye open now. I'm like, is Dan Jurgens gonna kill me? He's gonna creep in my room. I'm putting salt
Tuesday
circles around
night.
the bed. I don't even know what to do, bro. So if you kill Superman, I don't stand a chance. I'm sorry, Dan. Forgive me. No, but really, I do own the call. But all right, so Booster Gold is another one that, like, nobody asked for, right? He didn't even ask for it, but it's such a real instance of what happened if the average moron was able to do time travel. It's exactly what we most of us would do. Oh yeah, I'm from the future and I'm this really awesome guy and I'm a big deal then, right? It's like Ron Burgundy. I'm kind of a big deal in the future, right? So he goes back into everybody in the current times. He's like, oh, this guy must, he knows things, everything. He doesn't know anything. He's like a used car salesman. No offense to used car salesmen, it's okay. And he goes back and but you know what? It's cool because he ends up becoming the hero that he pretends to be, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's inadvertent or not. If you read
But
Booster Gold comics,
he's still a joke. He's still a joke.
oh, he is a
That's
joke,
probably what.
hysterical.
Mhm.
And here's the thing. I know there's rumors of Johnny going to take the role. I think it's going to be Chris Pratt.
Pratt could play the role, but I think Chris Pratt might end up doing something else because he's still attached to the MCU. He ain't going nowhere. He's not going anywhere because he is coming back in some way. They already made
I
that
don't know,
announcement.
man, because he joined Mark Wahlberg's prayer app, so now he might not be cool for the MCU anymore. Yeah, yeah, he's a little too conservatory now, I
Yeah, I
guess,
know.
for the
I heard about
MCU's
that too.
taste. So they might just release him and he goes with Gunn.
But what's his name? Kamal. I can't say his
Johnny,
name. Johnny.
who I love.
If he would be Booster Gold, I could totally see it. I
Oh
could see
yeah,
it.
listen,
It'll be perfect.
I like the movie Eternals. I know I'm in a small minority of people who really like that movie. I do. But
I
he
kind of
was
felt
by
the same
far
way.
my favorite part of that movie. Him
But
and
he was
his
he was
assistant.
booster. He was technically a Booster Gold like character. He's a complete
He
fraud.
really was. Yeah, no, he wasn't a fraud. He was only a fraud in the sense that he was defrauding the movie audience, right? Like,
Yeah, that's what
you know,
I'm saying.
he was his great grandfather, and he was his great grandfather, his great
They
grandfather.
all look
Let me
exactly
tell
the
you
same.
something. He was my favorite part of that movie, and I really did enjoy that movie. But I loved his character in that movie, and every movie he's in is funny, dude. Like if you watch his comedic roles, like he did that one movie. What was it? Where he was like accidentally robbing, I don't know, he was robbing banks or something. He robbed the bank. I like, but every movie he's in, I love him. So I could see him as Booster Gold, but I feel like it's gonna be Chris Pratt. I don't know
Well,
why.
it looks like he looks like Pratt. That's the thing, right?
Well, Chris
By
Pratt
the
looks
way,
like him.
you gotta see Only Murderers in the Building. He's supposed to be like a
Oh yes.
he's a YouTube influencer who's in love with Christmas. And spoiler alert, he hates Christmas, but he has to
Oh
stick
my
to the
god.
gimmick. He has to stick to the gimmick. That's the funny part about it. Um, yeah, I think Booster Gold's another one of those characters that we're seeing him now. People are starting to talk more about him.
Yeah.
His connection to Ted Core, Blue Beetle, the second Blue Beetle. So that's a big deal.
Yep.
So we want to see that. Um, he's a character that does have a lot of potential, and I think
I
he's gonna
wouldn't
be
be
big.
shocked if they do this that 7 degrees of separation that James Gunn likes to do. So if you read Peacemaker comics later on, he inevitably becomes a mentor to a young Blue Beetle,
Hmm.
who is a partner of Booster Gold. It's not a bridge too far
Yeah.
to think maybe we get an alluding to Booster Gold with this season of Peacemaker.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll definitely see, man. All right. It is now time to go with one of the biggest characters, and I say biggest in many respects,
Oh boy.
of the 80s that became extremely iconic, probably one of the most iconic characters on this list. We are talking about Venom. And I'm referring to Eddie Brock Venom, who who made his full first appearance in a little title
Here
called
we go.
Amazing Spider-Man 300 that came out in 1988 from Marvel Comics. A high sale of this book is at $25,250 at a 9.9. That was in February of 2020. Last sale of this book is $356 at an 8.0. The Raws go for $387 at a near mint, and that's actually a price drop from what it used to be.
Yeah.
Graded copies are $792 at a 9.6. Whew, talking about a big census count. 36,994 copies. One of them just happens to be the one I have right there.
There you go.
So, which is a newsstand edition, by the way. Um, yeah, I'm still calling this the first. I don't care.
Listen, at some point you can't fight the ocean, man. I'll let it go. I'll concede this one because we're just going to be here for too long. Here's one thing I'll say about the CDC census, kids. This is one thing I will say. I crack a lot of slabs
Yeah,
on a weekly basis. Now, some of us that do what I do, and some of us just as fans that crack open slabs, have the wherewithal to send back what I call the scalps
mhm,
back to CGC. You do that so that books are taken off the census. So
mhm,
here's something to keep in mind and to bear in mind when you look at the census numbers. I don't know how many people actually do that. And a lot of people, I'm sure, don't. You got to
yeah,
think about a book that is cleaned and pressed regularly because everyone loves this book, right? It's probably, I think it is now, if I'm not mistaken, has recently overtaken AF-15 as the most homaged cover of any comic.
yes, it
I
definitely has.
believe this one here has now taken that top spot as the most homaged cover ever, right? Every title, every publisher, everyone's done this image, this iconic icon. Here we go. This is an iconic image. It just is, right? It
Mhm.
is. And but going back to the census thing, you know, we got to take that with a grain of salt. We don't know, being that this book was so popular, and it was a large printed book, okay, but being that this book changes hands so often, everyone loves. It's an easy book to sell. It's a book everybody wants to buy. You got to think about how many times a slab has changed hands, and
Mm-hmm.
that scalp did not get sent back in when somebody cracked it.
Yeah.
That's really, and a book like this that was so hot for so long and still continues to be. We got to look at that number and be like, yeah, we got to start putting what do you call it?
There is an
Plus or
asterisk.
minus.
There's always an asterisk to it. Um, the
I'm not saying
CG.
this number in particular. I'm just saying in general when we do
Yeah,
that.
no, you're absolutely right with many of those books. So when we look at the census count, this is the count that they clearly have on record. And to your point, books get cracked open, they get repressed, they get sent back. Some of them get sent back with the label. Some of them, but like you said, most of them don't. Largely because they don't want the label to kind of like dictate what the grade's going to be, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that happens too. So
So
they
pro tip, guys, you could just send it back. Just mail it back.
yeah.
They don't even
Yeah.
need to know what book it went with. Send it back, and that's just a little bit of consideration for your fellow collectors. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
off my soapbox.
So there's that. However, what I will say, even if the number is questionable, it's not far off from what the reality of it is.
No, yeah, it's
It's
probably
still
not.
over 35,000 copies in the census,
Easy.
right? So it's still over.
It's a
So
great book.
this book is one of the most graded books of all time. I think it's in the top five. It's definitely in the top five of the most graded comic books of all time. I'm not sure if it's this one of New Mutants '98. I have to look back at the numbers again to look at, or Venom #1 for that matter.
What about X-Men 1, Jimmy Lee?
X-Men 1 is another one. Spawn #1 is another one.
Yeah.
Those books, because there's a high print run on those too, right? The difference between this one and those is that this one is still a sought after book because of its significance. It's
Yeah.
kind of the book that it's one of the books that split the timeline as far as Copper Age to modern age. I want to say X-Men #1 or Spawn #1 kind of did first. They kind of did it,
Yeah.
but it's still one of those books because it is top. It has a lot of things going for it. It's Todd McFarlane. It's a anniversary issue, which is 300. It is the last of the black costume as we know it. It is the start of Venom, right, which will then lead on to being a '90s phenomenon. Really, there's so much going for this book, and
It's aesthetically beautiful to look at.
it's
really
a great
is.
book to look at. It's awesome. Everything about it. It's lightning in the bottle. That's what this book
And
is.
like you're saying, it's a solid book, literally cover to cover. It's a solid book. You have everything, every element you could want in a key book is embodied right here. It definitely, you know what? I know for a modern book, I think it belongs in reverence with some of the greats. And I think
and it's
there's a
definitely
reason.
one of those books that everyone who has a copy wants to keep it. Everyone who has a copy wants to keep it. I don't know many people that have a copy of this book and said, you know what, I don't want this book anymore. It's a
Very
rarity,
rare.
right?
10 people who
I
want
still have my copy here is a 4.5, and the reason why it's such a low grade, it's one of my first books. It's like one of my. I got this off a newsstand. I bought it out of the newsstand. I spent $1.50 on this book.
There you go.
So
There you
I'm
go.
okay with my book. And
I ain't gonna lie though, low key, not even low key. I'm dead ass. 316 is my favorite Venom.
oh, I love that one too. I have that one too as well. It's not.
It is my
It's not showing off here.
favorite Spider-Man cover. Period.
Yeah.
Period. My favorite. Love that book.
So
Also
we're
80s.
down to 3 more books. So the next book here, we're gonna go a little indie again, but I think it's not indie in the same way as other indie books is. This character became popular for Saturday morning cartoons. I'm referring to Spoon the Tick. Oh my
And
god,
Arthur.
do I love
And Arthur.
Yeah, and Arthur. Oh my god, do I love the Tick. He made
Yeah, I
his
know.
debut all the way back in 1988 for New England Comics. High sale of this book is $1,499.09.8. The last sale of this book is $115.09.4. Raw goes for about $85, very fine. $115.09.4 seems to be the average. 591 copies in the census. This has a lot of printings as well, but what's really cool about the other printings is that they have different back colors. So there's the first printing is the black cover, the second printing I believe is yellow, then red, and then they went crazy and did like polka dot
No, that was the
backgrounds.
white. I think the white one was the second one,
Yeah, something like that.
and
Um,
then. But was his
oh
first
my
appearance
god.
really here though?
Well, there it's debate. It's his
Or,
first
or are we
on.
gonna or are we gonna go to that comic shop
Yeah.
news?
So, but this is his first comic book first appearance. We'll go
Yes.
there, right? Because I think that has more weight than because again, same thing with Spider-Man, with Venom. A lot of those characters
Yes.
made the Turtles. They all made their debut somewhere else. Malibu Sun,
Gobbledygook.
Spawn. You know what I mean? They made their debuts
Yeah.
in publications, but it's not the
I'm just
official.
busting chops. I'm
No,
just
that's
busting
fine. That's cool. But
chops.
I love the Tick.
It's great. It's so good.
I
Even the live action show is so
love
watchable.
the Tick.
Oh, there you go.
I love the Tick.
Oh, you're not playing.
Oh no,
You're
the
not
Tick
playing.
is one of my favorite characters because watching that. So it was part of Saturday morning cartoons in the 90s. He
Yes.
came on before the X-Men. So it was around the same time. It's X-Men, Batman the Animated Series. So and the animation was really solid on that show.
Yeah.
Um you had him, you had Deflator Mounts, you had American Made, Arthur. Um Chairface Chippendale is one of the best villains ever.
That
Um
Manuel.
Batman was part of the TV series because that was
Yep.
the Flater Mouse in the cartoon,
I
right?
know.
Oh my good! And then the fact that Chairface Chippendale, his biggest thing was that he wanted to make sure his name was written on the moon. And the best part of the story is like he managed to get the C and the H, but they stopped them in time. And what's really cool about the Tick is that no one knows his origin. No one knows where he came from. No one even
Yep.
knows what's his deal. Like, he's invulnerable. We don't even know if he's human or an alien. The costume
Yep.
never comes out. We don't even know. Like, he doesn't have a secret identity. He's just the Tick.
He wakes up, brushes his teeth, goes to the bathroom, showers wearing that suit. If it's
Yeah.
a suit.
He is one
For
of
all
the
we know, he's
funniest
naked.
characters. And they did the live series with Patton Warbury, and
Oh
it
my
didn't do that
god.
well. But there was like another one, and I didn't get to see it, the Prime one, the Amazon
No,
Prime
that was
show.
good too. First of all, the Patrick Warburton thing. If you've never seen it,
It's
listen,
great.
that's binge worthy, bro. It's binge worthy.
It's
You
like
talk about cult
too.
favorites, and it was on after Married with Children.
Oh, it's so good.
So I
I
mean, that
love
is
the Tick, man.
so good. And
Love
now
the
he's
Tick.
Joe. Now he's Joe from Family Guy. So, guys, just so you know, Joe from Family Guy was the Tick, but that's actually him. You get to see him, and
Yeah.
his voice is one of the most used voices in voice actors, one of the most famous voice actors. And if you really want to know what he looks like, watch the Tick, and it's
Oh,
great.
so good, man. I love the Tick so much, man.
Ooh.
Love the Tick.
Battle Cry is Spoon, bro.
I know. Otto had the
To this
book.
day, what the frig was Arthur?
Arthur was a moth.
But he
That
had
I knew.
the bunny ears. But he had the bunny ears. The
But he was a
bunny eared
moth.
moth.
He was a moth because his wings were spread
Cottontail.
out.
I
His
know.
wings were spread out, but he was a moth.
Freaking
That I
Arthur,
knew he
bro.
was a moth, and it was a costume that he never took off either. He was sleeping the moth costume. It's
So
just
good.
it is so funny. If you haven't seen the Tick, guys, watch the Tick.
Oh
He
yeah.
is You would just love it. I can't believe it's still not on, man. That's the kind of stuff that I wish was still on, man. That's how good the Tick is.
Ah.
So good, man. All right, we're going from comedy to dark fantasy, horror, everything in between. But if you are a goth kid, chances are you are a goth kid because of this character. I'm referring to the Sandman, Dream of the Endless, Morpheus, whatever name he goes by this week.
Yeah.
He made his first appearance in the comic book Sandman Masters of Dreams. The actual book is called Sandman #1, but I wanted to just throw out the Master of Dreams because it was the subtitle of the book. This book came out in 1989 for DC Comics, which later changed their name to Vertigo for this series. All right, so Sandman actually made the Vertigo series. It's not Vertigo at this time; it's still DC, and it was written for mature audience. Neil Gaiman, Sam Keefe, Mike Dringberg, um, amazing work in this book. This book had a high sale of $1,800 and 9.8, and that was in August of 2021. This book has dropped significantly since its height, for reasons we'll get to in a minute. $66
Yeah.
in No Gray was the last sale. Raws, $61 near mint. $366 and 9.8 for graded. There's currently 4,946 copies in the census. This is the first full appearance of Dream, aka Morpheus. Again, he goes by a lot of names. Um,
Yes. No.
the Sandman to me is the it was the spark of sophisticating reading in comics literature, in other words. um, it was the first comic book series to win this award that was never given to comic books, because of its writing
Yeah.
with Midnight Summer's Dream, which I believe is issue 18. um,
Alan Moore might beg to differ, but there's
yeah, but Neil
that. I
Gaiman
know.
has this one. Neil
No,
Gaiman
I know.
has this
I'm just
one.
saying.
I'm sorry,
No, I'm
man.
saying literally, Alan Moore might beg to differ.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
might put an incantation or something.
we might
What's
literally
your thoughts,
do that.
what's your thoughts on Sandman, man?
It another great character, and I think I think a lot of people who listen to Depeche Mode probably love this book. There you go. See, I mean, all right, and I know there's a lot of things surrounding the creator, but again, sometimes we need to not throw out the baby with the bathwater here. All right, uh, Sandman was a series that changed how comic books at that time were being perceived. We're going into the '90s. It was like bright colors, parachute pants, all those things that was going on. And then here's this dark little corner of comic books that no one, I don't think too many people paid attention to at the time, right? They created the Vertigo label, obviously, because they didn't want themes like this, because there's sex in there, there's death, there's this, all these adult situations that they didn't want sitting alongside of Batman and
The
Superman and Wonder
diner
Woman.
scene,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
rough. And they
little
did it
bad,
in the TV show. The TV show pulled it
little
off. I'm
bad.
shocked.
I think what also pulled it away was issue number 4.
Mhm.
Because who did we get in issue number 4?
Well, we get Martian Manhunter. Batman's in it as well. I believe Batman's in issue 4.
You got an L. Was it issue 4? I'm pretty sure it was issue 4. Lucifer.
But we get more to that story in Seasons of
But
Mist.
I just don't feel like DC Comics wanted Lucifer
Hmm.
in there. Like, it went to Vertigo before we got Lucifer.
Yeah.
And I think that was purposeful. I don't think the suits at DC Comics were comfortable introducing the idea of a real named deity, albeit, they changed a lot of the lore behind it. Mephisto was never Lucifer, right?
Yeah.
Mephisto was not the biblical devil, although it's alluded that he was. And I believe Bible Tales for Young Folks is technically his first appearance, but that's not here. That's a whole nother show. But when Neil Gaiman was like, "No, this is Lucifer." Well, you mean like that's just his name? No, Lucifer. You mean like some dude who is like a word? No, it's the devil. And at that point, they were like, "All right." I think honestly, and we would have to find somebody who was an editor at that point. I
Karen
think
Berg.
they were like, "It's such a good story," but I would bet the farm, bro, that it was the fact that they were going to introduce Lucifer that made them do the Vertigo thing.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Well, I think here, because that's a hard one to go by, because of course, right from the beginning, it was already suggested for mature readers. The covers kind of give that away as well. That's one of the things
Yeah,
that they did with these covers. They made the covers feel adult. Like you
They're
know,
beautiful though. Every one of them is a
Dave
work of art.
McKean,
Every Sandman
Dave
cover is gorgeous.
McKean's work is amazing, right? So Dave McKean's art in these covers is next level, right? Every single one. Think of a bad one. And
It's
that
not.
was so there was definitely thought in place, right? So Karen Bergen, who is the editor in DC Comics, she was like, I want to bring these European writers. Like there was the second wave of European writers in comics, like Alan
Yeah.
Moore, Grant Morrison, Neil Gaiman. These guys were making their names here. And
Yep.
DC took a risk on them. These books, in general, were never intended to be read by kids in that way. And they were, again, like I
No.
said, sophisticated reading, even to the point artwork in some cases were like fair. But like you said, the story it is issue 4, by the way, where he goes to hell. Um, and that story is
Mhm.
crazy. That's a crazy story. And then Season of the Mist, where he has to return, and they're scared to death that he's going back, which I don't think the show did justice,
Yep.
to be honest with you, with that one, because obviously they had to like speed through the entire story. Um, and what was really cool about the Sandman in general, it's about 76 issues, give or take an issue. It's about 76 issues, and it is a
Yeah.
complete story, beginning to end. It's like the writer knew exactly every beat
75,
to this
75
story.
issues. Here's the final one.
That's the final issue. Which let me get this
This is
here. My
so
Yeah, there it
the
is. The
final issue,
Tempest.
and this is the second printing. This was a
Mhm.
gift from somebody. So
Oh, sweet, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this was a tough
Yeah.
book to come
So
by. The second printing of that book is not an easy one to come by. You know, it's funny.
no, it's
There has
not.
nothing to do with '80s. It just came out in '96, but it just happened to be in the box next to me. That's
You
weird.
knew.
Weird, bro.
Your subconscious knew. So I think, taking, the creator's personal drama that they're currently going through with all the allegations and all that stuff that goes along with it. It's a shame because now this book's extremely affordable, where at one time it was unattainable.
Yeah.
9.8 at one thousand
Well,
eight hundred
listen,
dollars is a lot.
it is. I mean, but what? So what year was that?
That was 21, which
The
is
high sale,
obviously, yeah, the high sale.
the bubble. It's the bubble.
Yeah,
But
it's
again,
definitely a bubble, but look at it from but it wasn't just because of the bubble. It was also because the series
yeah, and
was
again, it's a
debuting.
dark colored
There was a lot
cover,
of
so
factors.
getting it in a 9.8 is not going to be easy,
No,
right?
paper's
It
quality
was
is
an
terrible.
adult themed, yeah, an adult themed book. It was probably, people weren't going for it at first, right? Because, you know, selling a non superhero genre has never been easy, right? It's always been one of those things that was tough. Like, we had House of Mystery and the House of Secrets, right? But it was deemed, the sideline stuff. It wasn't like the main line. Now, fortunately, we did get those series because some of the most amazing artists and storytellers got their starts in the horror books, whether it was pre-code, whether it was 1960s and 70s Silver Age. But we also got superheroes out of those books, books as well. But what I'm saying is, like, at that point, it was like walking the line back and forth. Were people still interested in horror? But I think what we got here was the superhero element told through more of a dark fantasy, which is what you summed it up perfectly. Dark fantasy, but with superhero elements behind it. It's good versus bad, bad versus good. Everyone has their own power subset or their place in the universe, and all the mythical deities or semi-gods, demigods, whatever they call themselves, all came into play, and then they had real biblical, names and mentions in there as well. So there was a lot coming into play, and it really is sophisticated. It's a thinking man's comic, and I really enjoy it. Right. So, and like, even the people who aren't into like the hokey pokey superheroes, like how they tried to say it, will still read this and still be like,
Yeah.
this is a great book, and that's why it did win the awards that it did and got the critical acclaim.
Mhm. All right, ready for I believe it's our final book in our list. Can't you believe it?
Uh,
And surprisingly enough, this character looks very much like the Sandman in some weird way, but completely different character, very similar in tone and effect, as well as fan base. I'm referring to The Crow. The Crow became a cultural phenomenon in the 90s, but debut in 1989 by James O'Barr. Now, the book you see here is not the first appearance of the Crow. That goes back to Caliber Press, issue number 2, if I'm not mistaken. This one comes back to 1989, Caliber Comics, the Crow, that has a high sale of $18,000 at a 9.8. That was in January of 2022. Last sale of this book is $599 at a no grade. $783 for near mint is the raw average. $997 at 9.4. Again, it's a black cover with really bad paper quality. There's 985 copies in the census. This is the first cover appearance of the Crow. Yeah, because he was in the back cover. Eric
Yeah,
Draven. This is such a tragic story because of everything that goes with this story. Lee took it to the next level, unfortunately, because of the
Brandon Lee.
passing of what happened. Amazing movie, which is a cult phenomenon. Also has what I consider to be the greatest soundtrack of all time. Personal opinion, myself.
Dope. Dope. No, listen, you are not wrong. And it was like everybody dressed up as the Crow in the '90s, right? Every Halloween, it was everyone was walking around with the Crow, and it was man. The movie was
Everybody had
amazing.
their white makeup with their.
Yep. And James O'Barr is a super nice guy, by the way. James O'Barr is a super chill
Mhm.
dude. I've had the pleasure of speaking on the phone with him a couple of times, and like such a nice guy. He's out in Texas, and yeah, I mean, who knew that some of these books, and that's why I say, never really pass up an opportunity to get a great book before it blows up or take a chance on a book, right? Because you never really know what the next big thing is going to be, and whether or not you love the last movie or not doesn't matter, right? It was okay. I watched it. It was okay. It wasn't bad. I've seen worse. It's after Meteor Man. That was the worst. And even that I could watch again because it's just so ridiculous. But so like, listen, again, cultural significance, plays a big deal with collectors, and I think the cultural significance of the Crow, transcends just the comic book medium, and I think it's a piece of cinematic history because of what happened. Obviously, having bloodline going back to Bruce Lee is a big deal, and his son, and how it ended. I mean, literally, if you die to make a movie, and that's kind of a loose interpretation of what happened, that right there is gonna ingrain it in pop culture history. And The Crow has its place. They can reboot it all they want. They can remake it all they want. They can give that role to 100 different people. That original film will always be ingrained as a piece of pop culture history and will always be a cult classic and favorite in perpetuity.
Mhm. Yeah, it does
All thanks
fall
to this
under
comic.
the yeah, it does fall as a '90s phenomenon because it is a '90s thing. But the comic book did come out in '89, so we're gonna go with
It's
as
one
'80s
year
out.
out.
It's 1 year
It
out, of
counts.
course. A
It
movie's
counts,
not a
dude.
movie.
No, it
Yeah,
counts.
it counts. Uh, I think for a generation,
Hmm.
this book has a lot of meaning. This character has a lot of meaning. The Crow, the movie. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that movie.
Yep.
I own my copy of the movie. I mentioned the soundtrack. I absolutely love that soundtrack. The
Those
Cure.
were my teenage years. Those are
Oh
my
my God, the
teenage years,
Crow.
bro. That was my
Yeah,
early high school years, right there, bro. I mean, Stone
yeah,
Temple
man.
Pilots, the
The
grunge
Cure,
era.
Nine Inch Nails. It is a hugely industrial
Oh
album.
man,
My Life with Thrill Kill Cult. You have Helmet, Rollins Band. I could listen to that album all the time. I
so
listen. In
much
fact,
good.
I do listen to it all the time.
You don't even
It
have to skip a track, bro. You don't even have to skip a track. You just listen to the
nope,
whole thing right through.
right, all the way through.
Dope.
And right from the beginning when it plays "Burn" by when it plays "Burn" by the Cure, and you just hear right before the song actually starts, you just hear crow the crow
Hmm.
sound. It's like, oh, this is so good. Like the moment you hear it,
Yeah.
I'm one of these loyalists in the sense that when I listen to an album, there's certain albums I have to listen to it as it was intended to be listened to, right? I don't put it on shuffle. Never mind. I cannot listen to Never Mind on shuffle. I have to listen to it the way it is.
The whole
The
thing.
Crow soundtrack is one of those soundtracks I have to listen the way it was intended. I cannot put that
Yeah.
thing on shuffle. You know what I mean?
Like brick in the
And
wall.
oh god, it's so good, man. It's such a good it's just a good, yeah.
It's like Wu
Oh,
Tang in the 36 chambers. You got to listen to it
you know
from
what
the
I'm saying?
start to the finish.
It was intended to be that way, and that's the way it's going to be, and that's how I have to listen to it. And
Metallica's Black
this,
Album, Fuji's The
uh,
Score.
it's they're meant to be that way. That's how you have to listen to it. No shuffle here. Uh, there you have it. We have reached and we have come to the conclusion of these 80s icons. What do you think, Michael? Did you think it was worth it?
I think it was totally radical, dude.
Cowabunga,
I
baby.
just wish I had bigger hair.
I wish I had some hair. I got a little bit of hair, man. I'm good so far. I'm still
Sorry, bro. You're looking good. You're all right.
I'm good. So, Michael, before I let you go, we gotta let the world know where people gonna find you, all that good stuff, everything that goes along with that. Let the world know what's
You
happening
can
with
find
SpineWorks.
me on all the usual social media outlets. Michael Raphael Comics on Instagram, SpineWorks Comics NYC. You can Google us, you'll find it, trust me. And again, you'll see us coming back again soon with the Den of Geek for another round of auctions and madness and mayhem. And the Mic'd Up Show by Crash Media Partners and 451 going into production. And I can't tell you where you're going to be seeing it yet. I'm not allowed to speak that much about it. But Izzy, you know you're going to be a guest on there. We've already talked about that. So and don't be trying to press Izzy for information either. You get him in trouble too. But again, yeah, you can find
Brother
me,
to see
and of course, Thank you for now. And then SpineWorks Comics NYC. Again, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and all your usual places.
it was a blast. I enjoyed doing these videos. We're gonna do 70s icons soon. That's probably gonna
Ooh,
be the next one. I also have a real fun one that I'm gonna keep hush hush. I'll let you know in the background later. What's happening with that one? That one's a real fun one, and I'm gonna get hate on that one. I know that one I'm gonna get hate on, but that's okay. It's worth it. Um,
oh, bro,
until
I want to
then,
be part of
guys.
the hate show.
Wait till I tell you what it is. Uh, guys, you know the deal. We're gonna be doing a giveaway. So here's the information on the giveaway. So I hope you enjoyed the 80s icon. I'm gonna be giving away Spider-Man 2099 in a 9.2, and we have some comments that came in. It is time to do the wheel to find out who is our winner. So good luck. And there goes the wheel, and our winner is going to be none other than the angry straight white man. Congratulations. Favorite 90s icon is Spawn. Well, what do you know? You just won the 90s book, Spider-Man 2099 and 9.2. Please hit me up in IG where I will be able to provide you with the details to send it to you. So please give me that information. And once again, congratulations to Angry Straight White Male. I love that title. That's hilarious. But congratulations. And let's get back to the video so we can wrap things up. Excelsior. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one. The top trending show is coming back live. I'm excited. Got Cliff on Comics, who I'm afraid we're going to have to put the PG-13 label on that one because he can't control himself. But it's going to happen. It's going to be the loudest show you've ever heard. That's happening very soon. Tuesdays at 7 p.m. for the top trending. And, of course, Spotlight happens every Sunday. Not every Sunday. We're going to do every other Sunday. I can't do this weekly thing anymore. It's too much on me. I'm too old, man. I'm getting there
You
in
gotta
age,
grind
man.
it, bro. Grind it.
You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of work. I'll see you guys next time in Izzyverse NYC. Until then, Excelsior. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more comic content. Check out these other videos for even more insight. And I'll see you at the next one. Excelsior.